Hello and welcome to the BNB show. My name is Brandon. This is Brendon here from Seahawks Brendon Nelson, and we're coming at you today to do a little bit of discussing regarding this Germany matchup. The Seahawks are heading to the Deutschland to go face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But first off, let me welcome my good friend here, Brendon Nelson, into the house. How you doing, Brendon?
Well, I'm kind of feeling like LJ Collier is still on a football team and Jerry Tillery isn't.
Who could have ever made that guess?
Yeah.
Those two guys.
Who still has a job and who's in the unemployment line?
I like Tillery too coming out.
I know. He was the guy we almost took. He went one pick before us. I'm almost positive we would have taken him if the Chargers didn't.
I could definitely see it, but boy, he just had the same kind of lack of, I guess, development there, though. Maybe I shouldn't throw as much shade at LJ. He's graded out reasonably well this year. I mean,
very small sample size.
Yeah, it is true. He's only out there for probably 10 plays a game. So, and I'm still on team Miles Adams personally. When it comes to
we all are.
Yeah,
we all are.
I think he would be better, but it's gonna be we got a fun matchup to really discuss here today, Brendon. It's been a little bit of a weird theme you've seen from this year so far, and that is Hall of Fame quarterbacks who have been very prolific and have been very productive, who find themselves this year, Brendon, in varying states of maybe just disrepair. And Tom's probably the best of the bunch that's suffering this of the trio, I guess, or we give him trio, quad. Matt Ryan's in there as well on this. So do you I haven't really made heads or tails of it. I can't figure it out. With this all kind of coming down at once, do you think it's all separate reasons for these guys having their separate struggles, or is there something deeper at play here with this?
Well, when I look at Aaron Rodgers, I see the fact that his receivers are really bad. A lot of them don't even look like they belong in the NFL at the moment. Now, a guy like Christian Watson, I think, will be good. I think that he's going to be a very good receiver in this league at some point. Clearly not ready for the show right now. But overall, it's just a really bad crew of receivers, and I think that's a big part of it. There's some other stuff going on there as well, don't get me wrong. But I think that's a big part of it. When I look at Matt Ryan, I just see he has no arm left. Like, we watched that Broncos-Colts game together, and he had to put everything he had on it just to get the ball like 15 yards down the field. Yeah. It was like watching me in the backyard throwing a football where, yeah, I don't have I can't get the ball that far because I just, it's not something that's in my skill set. I don't practice it. I don't have the strength for it. But his arm is just gone. When I look at Russell Wilson, I think that the things that he struggled with in previous years are starting to really, really take root, and he's losing the things that made him really good, like his athleticism. So that's what I see when I see those three guys. When it comes to Brady, the best way I can put it is that he's just, I guess maybe we had unrealistic expectations for how long this was going to go. He already pushed it well beyond what people thought. This was a guy who was supposedly washed up 10 years ago. I think there were various points when people were thinking that. He looked so done that New England let him walk for nothing. Maybe it's finally actually happened. Maybe that's really all there is to say about it. Maybe we shouldn't be that surprised.
Yeah. I certainly think there's probably some different reasons you can apply there. The thing that does seem to me, in looking at it and thinking about it a little bit, was the wondering on, I look at these four quarterbacks, and the thing that they also have, I think, in common this year is that, especially in pass protection, things have not been as good across the board in that respect of things. We know with Russell, what he's dealing with there with the Denver line, losing Garrett Bowles. Indianapolis's offensive line has crazily just gone into the tank this year out of nowhere, when that was such a big strength of that team for years. Tampa Bay loses 2 linemen this year, one to retirement, one to a season-ending injury at the start of the year. Donovan Smith, I've been watching the tape here, and he's not the same player at the left tackle position as they've had prior from him, and in the performance level goes. So there's a little bit of me that wonders with this, as well, as if this is a bit of an indicator of some of these quarterbacks that are going to play a little bit older and later into their time, Brendon. They've got to have that offensive line in front of them. And if it starts to falter or starts to fail, their diminishing skill set or those things that they can't do start to become a little bit on brighter display to me, just a little bit.
Yeah, and I like I said, I think that's exactly what's happened with Wilson this year, where he, or to a certain extent last year too, where the things that made him great fade, and there needs to be something else that can replace that. And right now, he doesn't have something to replace it. Maybe next year he will, but right now it doesn't look like he does. And I just look at I look at somebody like Brady, who is still playing fairly well. I think if you look at his numbers are totally fine.
He's the best of the crew that's having struggles this year. Let's say he's the best of the bunch in that.
Right. I think that's a pretty fair assessment. And the interesting thing is he's the guy who actually has some of these receivers. I know the offensive line isn't great, but he's got a pretty decent fleet of pass catchers going right now. So I think that of those four guys, he's probably the guy with the best chance to right the ship between now and the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they're not scoring very much. And as Tony Romo put it last week, I believe it was, they might have the worst run game in the. Tony Romo actually said they have one of the worst run games in NFL history. So that's going to be hard to overcome because there just isn't a whole heck of a lot there.
There isn't, and I guess let's kind of lay the groundwork here for this Tampa Bay team this year. They're of course coming into this game in first place, albeit you've got to put a little bit of an asterisk there where they are 4-5 right now. They are a team that still is playing pretty good defensively, as far as holding teams down as far as points go. They're pretty stingy in that respect of things, but offensively, it's a really rough road. Brady's numbers look fine at first blush, and when you go through and see where he's at, but then when you dive deeper into this, you go, okay, but there's something bigger at play here. And I think, Brendon, you touch on a big part of this problem here, which is the one-dimensional aspect of this offense. You have nobody in that backfield that you're going to be scared of. Leonard Fournette seems to have been. There was at one point this offseason, Brendon, he was having those pictures shown with carrying all that weight. He's doing that Zeke Elliott kind of offseason where you're like, geez, you going 240 in the offseason, man? Like, what are you doing? I mean, you're just no working out. And he's like, oh, I'm going to get myself into shape. And it was legitimately bad pictures. It wasn't like somebody caught him at a weird angle. It was like, you're out of shape right now, and you're supposed to be a running back in this league. And I watch him run, Brendon, and he looks like at times he's running in mud this year. First, when he came out of LSU, he was very explosive. Sorry.
Yeah. I've never been a Fournette fan. I didn't really like him in Jacksonville. I call it Eddie George syndrome, where you're not very good. You run for like 3.4 yards a carry a lot of the time, but all these sports writers say, oh, he's good because he's so tough. You know, he runs through people. He's so physical. And meanwhile, you look up at the stat sheet and you see a lot of games that are like 17 carries, 55 yards. And it's like, yeah, that toughness really helped. So I've never been a Fournette fan, and this year he looks worse than ever. And they don't have Ronald Jones anymore, do they?
No, they have a guy that we actually scouted a lot on that they lean back on by the name of Rachaad White out of Arizona State.
Yeah, okay. I do remember him. Great pass catcher.
We did, and there's going to be a bit of discussion on this in a second when talking about him. He's not having any more effectiveness though in running the rock than I think he's even less effective. Like one guy's 3.7, the other guy's 3.3 on their average yard per carry, if I'm not mistaken on that. But I was a bit bigger Fournette guy. I feel like he had more of or I'm sorry, Brendon, 3.3 and 3.1 respectively is their yard per carry average right now between those two running backs. I was bigger on Fournette because this was at the time when Marshawn was just leaving, and I felt like he was kind of the closest thing coming out of college I had seen since Marshawn in the way he went about his business. I feel like he's lost speed, which is he's not a guy that is going to break tackles by, kind of like Kenneth Walker style. He's got to do it by running you over a little bit, but also using that speed at times also be able to run away from guys. So I think when he loses that makes his effectiveness go down. But this comes down to as well, I think, Brendon, beyond it being a running back problem, we liked Rachaad White. This is also an offensive line problem. Ryan Jensen is a nasty center down there who can really maul guys and get on it. Ollie Marpet was one of the best guards in the NFL Those two guys are gone off of this offensive line on the interior side of it. And this is a kind of a power run style team. They want to, when they do run the ball, want to kind of go up the middle with it. And they need those guys up in the middle to open those holes. We've suffered from this too at times, Brendon, especially the start of the year, where the interior of the line just wasn't opening any holes in the running game. And if you want to be merely a power inside team, hell, we've had this going back years. You want to be a power inside team, you've got to have the linemen inside that can open up those holes, because you get very predictable in that approach, and it gets very easy for teams to stop you because they just start to ignore the outsides basically, and everything becomes focused on the inside, One thing I want to talk about though with this Rachaad White thing, and I wanted to ask you about, is does this not kind of also further sort of teach us the tale here about this running back value argument that continues to be will continue to be perpetuated and continue to go back and forth between the two different camps, being where you draft a running back and how you can get a good running back down in the later parts of it. You and I think both agree on this. You had Breece Hall and you had Kenneth Walker as your 1-2, true 1-2s of this last draft. And then there was into tier 2 of the running backs. And at the top of tier 2, if I'm not mistaken, we had basically Rachaad White as one of those guys near that top point of tier 2. And look at the difference here on these two guys in what one guy can do when it's not blocked up and to be able to generate yards and still find holes and to break big plays, and what you get from tier 2. And I only bring this up, Brendon, because is this not a little bit of an indicative point of this argument of there is a difference in running backs you can get. And if you put Rachaad White here, he's not going to put up the same stats Kenneth Walker's putting up right now. Not when he's rocking 3-1 as a yard per carry average. He's not getting that significantly bad at blocking in front of him. Do you think that this is a legitimate argument?
Absolutely. It's absolutely a compelling argument. And earlier this season, I don't know about right now, but earlier this season, we both saw it. Walker making things work with not a whole lot to go on, finding ways to make yards when there didn't seem like there were a lot of yards there. And absolutely, there's a difference between a super skilled running back and a not so skilled running back. I don't think that's ever been argued. I think the running back argument has always been more like, well, how valuable are even the best running backs? I think the argument has more been about, you have these running backs that are clearly much better than these other running backs.
Yeah.
But are you willing to spend a top 10 pick on that high value running back? How far down does it go? So yeah, it's a great case study in that. And by the way, one thing I would say is that we don't know if Rachaad White is good. We believe that he's good because we saw him in college. We really liked what we saw. We both thought highly of him based on it was Arizona State, right?
That's right.
Right. So, maybe he's just not a very good running back. That's very possible. But yeah, it is a great, you watch those two guys play and you can see a clear difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think too, it's obviously me being anecdotal and sort of cherry picking a single guy to your point on that, where he's just a bad player. But it's also, I think, a little bit of representatory of this draft class if you look beyond those two guys taken, where you have Dameon Pierce, who was a guy that couldn't get very many carries in college, and it was very hard to make a projection on him and where he was going to be. He ran hard, but you wondered why he got so few carries at the college level, why he wasn't being used more if he was so good. Beyond that, there's not been a lot of other rookie running backs, though, to make any kind of real impact. And that does match along with the evaluation we kind of had of what they look like coming out. And I think you're right about this. It is about value. But that's my point a little bit in the respect of you put Rachaad White here, and he's probably averaging 4 yards a carry in this offense, where you're getting maybe a yard more per carry average with a guy like Walker because he's so dynamic, because he is a difference maker to the position. And that is a place where you kind of can, I think, a little bit better measure what is the difference of a running back. I still fall in line with Brendon saying, I would be very hesitant to go first round, but you're talking about second round and getting one of the two best players at their position in the entire draft, regardless of how devalued that position is in the NFL. I think we've got to look at this as a lesson moving forward of, in my opinion, at least, of saying that's right value. That's good value. You're going to help your football team out by making picks at that place for that player at that position.
Right. I mean, where would this team be right now without Ken Walker? Mm-hmm. Seriously.
I agree. Yeah.
We'd probably bring back Alex Collins, and that would be our running back. And
probably.
What's our record right now? 4-5?
Yeah. I could very well see it be that. And I mean, maybe I'm not trying to oversell that it's too impactful. And again, I'm still on the don't take one in the first round. But this argument that got into the second round, this shows you, as a great case study as to why running backs do matter, and that when you get a truly talented one who's deserving of being picked high, there are times to pull that trigger in the second round to look that route of it. Maybe even with Walker going as is to look at it this year as we come into this draft, Brendon, because this will be something that comes up. It's probably not the right selection to go running back, but what if you get into that value argument of best player available? What if Robinson from Texas is sitting there on the board with your first pick in the second round, or you're looking at, the fifth best player at another position?
If he slips to the second round, I'm going to wonder what happened, because most of the stuff I'm seeing says he's like mid first. So that value would be difficult to pass up. Yeah.
When I just think it's because it's for the same reason you and I've had to have so many pushbacks on arguments to people with Walker pick at the time it was taken and just after it was taken, because this narrative is sunken in so deep with the running back position and people have dug in so hard on. I think it has gotten to the NFL a little bit in the way the NFL looks at running backs too. I'm looking at a few of them go in the last couple of drafts in just the second round alone. Say nothing in the first round. Look at the second round where there's so few going in that period. I think it's just pushed. The value is pushed so strongly in that direction. And I think it's overcorrected a little bit in the way that I think people look at that value.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I believe we have one super chat from Garth.
We do indeed. Sorry, Garth. Yeah, I'm a little Garth's taking over the Orange Cat. She's being a little loud tonight, as she always is. Thank you for the $5 donation. Says, I want to know what theories you buy into, Orange Cat. What theories do you buy into, huh? You going to go quiet now? Know that I'm giving you attention and looking at you. Okay. Now she's happy. Everything's good. Thank you, Garth, for the $5 donation. Getting us started off right with that. I appreciate it. And she's got many theories, but she's very quiet about them.
That's the right way to be. That's the right way.
That is the right way to be with theories. As a theorist myself. So Tom's doing okay in this offense as far as throwing the ball. They're not putting up a lot of points. Defensively, they're still holding pretty strong, even though I think they're not as good as they've been in recent years. Jason Pierre-Paul moved on this offseason. Ndamukong Suh moved on this offseason. They're very hopeful that Joe Tryon, how do you spell it? How do you say his last name with the new addition?
I believe it's Joe Tryon.
But didn't he add the old thing on the extra on the end there?
Did he add something at the end? Did he do
Joe Theismann? He did a Heisman. He did a he did a hyphen.
Oh, shoot, I don't know about that. He was dead to me as soon as he left UW.
Yeah, exactly. But he's got 2.5 sacks this year. He's okay. Watching the tape, he's not really having a huge marker of success. Vita Vea is playing excellent football. He might be playing his best ball down there on the defensive line for them right now. He's really impactful. He's going to be a thing to watch in this game. How we deal with him. Do we put double teams to him? He's got 5.5 sacks, I think, on the year, something like that. So he's going to be an issue. Shaq Barrett's still playing good for them. They did lose Jason Pierre-Paul, but he's all around still being a really good player for them in the run game and in the pass. Watching how teams are attacking them, they're very good still stopping the run up the middle, it looks like. This is a little bit like last week, Brendon, where I feel like you can kind of challenge their team speed a little bit to the edge. They also are having a tendency at times to do a lot of cornerback blitzing with the slot corner. And when teams are catching it, like I watched in the Panther game, this happened, and the Baltimore Raven game, this happened. When teams catch that corner blitzing, they're able to hand the ball off like an outside zone run, but it's just inside the cornerback who's running full tilt to try to obviously provide pressure on the play. And he's not doing a good job of coming under control when he is blitzing. And when you're able to hit them in the run game there, it's going for huge, huge chunks of yardage for those teams when they run, because they're down that defender then in that secondary. Because Tampa Bay does want to blitz. They'll do a 50-50 kind of split to you. You'll get some front four, but then they'll do a lot of games up front too as well. Where they were really tough before, Brendon, was really just, and they could get the front four pressure, and then they were very good as blitzers too, where usually you have one or the other in teams. They could kind of do them both. And not quite as good, I think, in the blitz game this year. It hasn't seemed like it's getting there quite as much.
Yeah, well, one thing to note is Shaq Barrett's out for the season, I believe. So
is he? Did he go down?
Him. I believe he's done for the year. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Do you have an update on the injury situation right now in Tampa Bay coming in this one?
They've got no Russell Gage, and they've got no Luke Godecki, I believe his name is.
Okay. Wow.
We don't know about Julio. He never practices though, so when he doesn't practice, that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Yeah, he looked done.
Yeah, and is there anything else? I think that's about it. Winfield's back from his concussion. He's expected to play. Brait is apparently good. Cameron Brait.
Mhm.
And that's what I know as of right now. It's obviously only Thursday, so we'll know more tomorrow, but that's what I'm understanding.
Well, Barrett being out like that's a huge hit to them in this game. That's because he was playing still really fine football, and being that they were down those other two guys, they were really relying on Vita Vea and Barrett to be the guys up front that could really get the job done, especially when they wanted to come with the front four and not blitz and drop things into zone. So that could be a place that we have some real holes that we can hit for them in this defense. Going on one side or the other with that just a tiny bit. Winfield's good though. He's going to help their secondary out. He's, I think, one of the better safeties in the league. So that's going to make it a little bit more, an issue on that outside. And their corners are okay. Jamel Dean is all right though. DK cooked him up a couple of years ago, didn't he? I mean, he really.
I remember that.
Jamel,
I'm still here, by the way. I just need to move real quick.
You're
off
good.
cam for just 1 second.
No worries. Jamel Dean, of course, with DK a couple of years ago in Seattle, had the matchup kind of one-on-one between them. Jamel's this bigger cornerback who's all supposed to be really, really fast, sort of like the antidote, you could say, to a DK Metcalf. But instead, DK went out in that game, of course, and just really smoked him up and gave it to him. Tyler Lockett also had a really good game a couple of years ago against the same secondary. So hopefully maybe they can find some more of those holes, Brendon, in this particular secondary coming into this game and the way that we can kind of attack them a little bit. But that'll be kind of a matchup. I think it'll be the interesting one to see if DK can come back to Dean and see if does Tampa Bay roll more double coverage to DK this time than they did last time, because a lot of that was because you were singling up Dean on DK one-on-one.
One thing I did notice is I believe Metcalf and Lockett were not listed on the injury report at all today.
Jeez.
So that is an indicator that maybe they're past the issues that were hampering them. That's hopefully good news. I was definitely concerned that the injuries that Lockett sustained in particular, because it was a hamstring, would not go away unless he actually, left stopped playing for a little while. So that's a relief if true. And, this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team is a great example of a team that makes me want to unsub to Pro Football Focus, because you look at their PFF page. Have you done this? Have you looked at the Buccaneers PFF page?
No, I just looked at some of the individual scores. I didn't go to the full one.
Yeah, you look at their PFF. More than half their defense is like 52 or lower. Like, according to PFF, their defense is full of garbage players. They say Vita Vea's bad. They have Devin White as one of the worst players in the league.
They never liked Devin.
Yeah, they've always hated him. They hate their safeties. They hate everything about this defense. Hicks, they have Hicks at like a 46. Awful. And then their offense, everybody's good. It's like, oh, one of the best offensive lines in the league. Receivers great. Quarterback great. Fournette's okay. And yet they can't score. And you look at that and you go, what are you not seeing? What is the gap in PFF's understanding that makes them think this when it's clearly not translating in any meaningful way on a football field?
To me, it's complication. Complication sets PFF in a position of having to play guessing games, because there are certain times and certain things that they just don't know. And when you have a defense with a lot of moving parts, as Tampa Bay's defense does have, and they want to do a variety of different things in the way they attack you, it's going to be tougher, I think, to then know what a guy's real responsibility was on a play. Versus, as I've always referenced to in the past, Brendon, trying to grade, like, let's say our old cover 3 defense must have been a cupcake session for PFF guys. They're going to run cover 3. Does he stay deep over the top as a corner? Yes. Grade well. Versus Tampa Bay, which will have a corner and press, and then off coverage, and then run in zone, and then run in man, and then maybe he'll come in and try to blitz, and then maybe he's there to fake blitz and then drop back out, but then now he's out of position in his coverage. But that's the defensive scheme putting him in that position, I guess, is my bottom line. At times, the negative grade you may be giving them is because the scheme has put them there, not because they played it bad. And that's the part I think that gets tougher for those both offense and defenses for PFF to get into the weeds a little bit on that, because you can't know. Even if you have your experts and former players in there grading it, there are just certain things you can't really 100% know on. But I think it's also still, the tool is there for that to be utilized. There's something to be said for how you're seeing those grades. And when you are looking at a team, Brendon, that is 4-5, certainly the offense does not carry the day here in that aspect of things. But as well, they're 4-5 for a reason. Somebody's playing bad. Maybe, and I agree, the offensive line shouldn't look good, but that's the flip side of this. Brady's offensive lines are always going to be graded better almost a little bit like Wilson's offensive lines always used to be great, a little bit worse in things that were outside of their control. The quarterback holding on the ball a little longer. They have a quarterback holds on the ball a little less long, less time for a defensive line to get there, more success points for an offensive lineman who, if he's playing for any other quarterback, it's, there's another second and a half they have to hold up, Brendon. But here's the flip side of that. It's a 4-yard pass. I mean, Brady's throwing these little dink, 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 dink. You've seen them before. This is the Brady game. And so it's also like, yeah, but then there's this, yeah, but then there's that, right? So it's one to the other. It doesn't mean just because they are holding up in that second half doesn't mean it's a plus play for them, because the defense might have squeezed those zones down as teams are doing with Brady right now, because teams are not scared of his arm deep, especially on the outside deep, going outside the hash marks deep.
Right. Yeah. I was just thinking earlier today, if I was a PFF employee, I would be embarrassed about that Buccaneers lineup page. I would definitely look at that and go, we need to reconsider the way we look at things a little bit. This is not okay.
The Vita Vea one especially is that doesn't make any sense to me. And watching a couple of their games, he's flashing all over the football field on the inside. He's providing pressure. I don't. Sometimes he's got to go, and a lot of times he's got to go with double teams in there too, because he's not a natural 3 tech. So what are we like? What are we doing here, BFF? Like, what are we doing? And I don't know. I've always liked Devin White, but they've never liked Devin White for some weird reason.
Yeah, I think Vita Vea has the worst PFF grade than Quentin Jefferson. I mean, come on now.
That's just absolutely.
You need to reconsider the way you're doing things if that's the result you've come up with.
Yeah, that is absolutely. Especially guy in Jefferson, who they've had rated as our worst defender on our defense almost, or one of our bottom 3 worst defenders just about every week is where they have him placed.
Right. But yeah, it's still a pretty good defense. They're still doing a pretty good job this year. I would say that their corners in particular seem like they're playing fairly well this year, for whatever that's worth. Big fan of Winfield. Obviously, he's one of those guys they have playing safety until they go nickel, and then I believe he plays nickel, which is always kind of fun and interesting. Yeah. So very fun, very versatile player. And I'm not as worried because they don't have the insane pass rush that they did in years past with JPP, Shaq Barrett, and I think there was one other guy as well who would get after quarterbacks really well. God, I can't remember his name. But anyway, Sue. Yes, Sue. Thank you.
I was blanking on that for a second too.
But that's something that would concern me a little bit more, because even though our offensive line's playing pretty well, they do have 2 rookies up there. So a team with a lot of aggressive blitz packages, which a team with Todd Bowles coaching is probably going to have. He's a really sharp defensive mind. He has a lot of cool packages like that. The fact that they don't have as much stuff to throw at you makes me feel a little better about our offense in this game. I will say that.
Yeah, good points as far as that defensive line. It's that it was a big part of their Super Bowl winning team was we can get the front 4 pressure there. Every guy's a threat to get and generate that pressure. We don't have a lot of weaknesses in that front 4 guys, and then we can bring the pressure, like you said, with Todd Bowles being so a myriad of different looks that he can throw at you, and he's really good at confusing quarterbacks, in that way. Geno, a little bit like last week. This is shades of last week, where Geno's going to have to be very good at the offensive line pre-snap in this game in dealing with this particular defense, because of how confusing it can be for offenses at times. The flip side of that is, though, like Arizona, there can be holes then opened up by this defense running so many of these games. Saw that in the Carolina game, where they were able to, especially tight ends, man. There have been some holes at times on this defense with Tampa Bay with the tight ends. I mean, that's why Devin White's getting dinged as much as he is at times, because there was some spots. There was a play Tommy Trouble had he hit a deep shot, the tight end for Carolina a couple weeks ago, and a lot of that came from the fact you didn't have help on the back end with safeties there. You had him running clear because you were so tuned up to the running game. I have to wonder, Brendon, if we go 3 tight ends here, get a guys going up the seams, if there might be some of those shots a little bit deeper down the field than we've seen even this year from that set. For Geno to hit, because they will be so sort of tuned up to stopping the run here, and I don't think a lot of I know maybe last week they had a little bit of this with the Rams to a degree. I got to go back. I didn't have a chance to watch the Rams tape yet, but not a lot of teams running a lot of that under center play action, roll back the other way stuff that has been a big part of our game, Brendon, that the bootlegs basically, and they haven't had as many teams running that stuff the way we run it. So I think we're going to also kind of challenge them in some unique ways to that defense than they've run into so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this sometimes, but nobody's really figured out the three tight end sets on defense yet. So I don't think this defense is going to be the one to do it. They're playing pretty well, but it looks like you can run on them. The Ravens had like 250 rushing yards on them. A couple other teams have had success running the ball on them. I believe Carolina did as well. So I think you can get them in that situation, exactly what you're talking about, where you get those three tight ends on the field, and it's just really hard to know what to do. It's hard to know how to deal with that. And I wonder if there's a little bit of what's going on here is when a guy like Todd Bowles goes from defensive coordinator to head coach, the defense loses something because that defensive coordinator now has to focus on more things, and it becomes much less effective. Like maybe a slightly different example, but Brandon Staley, who was an incredible defensive coordinator for the Rams the 1 year he was there, they were number one in the league. And then he goes to the Chargers and still has plenty of talent over there. And his defense is terrible. And I think a big part of it is just your focus gets split. So I think that's something that's happening over there as well. I think that's going to help.
Yeah, I think that's a big a good point to be made. And we've also seen guys too, Brendon, that are the guys that are just better coordinators than they are head coaches. I mean, there's a bit of that with it too, but there's no doubt to your point on that. You do lose, you're getting 100% of this from a defensive coordinator. If he goes to be head coach, you're going to have that reduced down. Even if you're getting a lot of what you had before, there's still something a little bit lost there when they've got to go do the head coach and have all those responsibilities, especially Brendon, when you've lost some talent and you've not been able to re-inject talent in to replace it. I mean, that's also going to be a natural thing that goes down, though. We can't knock too much garbage with them. They've done really good this year, and they've done good with their offense, not necessarily, holding up very well for them. You look at their schedule here, and so they started out the year, Brendon. They beat Dallas 19-3. Then
Right.
they beat New Orleans 20-10. They lose to Green Bay 14-12. Boy, I'm glad I missed
Which
that
looks
game.
terrible now at this point, right? Like that just looks awful.
Yeah, that one looks really bad. And thank God I haven't watched that one. They lose to Kansas City 41-31. Casey puts 41 points up on that
A lot of those
defense.
points were garbage time for Tampa as well.
Okay.
So Kansas City just basically blew them out, and then Tampa got to run the score up a little bit.
Okay. Then we got Atlanta that is a win, 21-15. And then they have 3 straight losses in a row where they lose to Pittsburgh. They lose at Carolina, and then they lose at home in Baltimore. 3 tough losses there. To bounce back last week was big. But you look at the schedule, wins against Dallas and Los Angeles look good, but the losses look almost worse than the wins look, don't they?
I mean, if you lose to Kenny Pickett, you something's went wrong.
Yeah.
I still don't know how to really explain what the heck happened in that game. I know Trubisky came in at the end and sealed it, actually. So not just Kenny Pickett, not that it's any better, I guess. But yeah, it's a very weird season they've had. Despite giving up a lot of stuff on the ground, they do a pretty good job preventing points. They're another team that has done that fairly well. I know we were talking about the Giants a couple weeks ago as a team that gives up a ton on the ground and yet doesn't give up a ton of points. We see this sometimes. We see these teams that cannot stop the run, but find ways to have success anyway, like the Packers a few years ago. So I think the key to this offense working is run the ball on this defense. I know they have Vita Vea back. It's going to be a little bit harder, but you've been able to run on that team much more than in recent years. So you have to run the ball, and then you have to actually make it count for something. And we've been doing a pretty good job of that this year. I was looking at the numbers this week. We are 4th in points, but only 11th in yards, which tells me that we're doing a very good job of taking advantage of the opportunities we get. When we get in scoring range, we're scoring. So if you keep that up, you can take advantage of the fact that you're running the ball well.
And if you got a running game, that's one of the better running games out there, especially by efficiency standpoints of things. That's going to be usually a team that's going to do good in the red zone. It's a throwing league and a passing league, but it still does come down, I think, a little bit to the fact that you get down near the red zone and you need to have a running game. This is a little bit of why I think you got Tampa Bay with so many issues here, where Tom, from a statistical standpoint and throwing yards, looks okay. But then you go, well, yeah, but they're not even scoring 20 points a game on average. What's happening? And you see them on tape where they're moving the ball at times between the 20s, but they get down by the end zone, Brendon, and you feel the congestion up against their offense. Everything gets really tight because those short little routes that Brady's picking on throughout the course of moving the ball up the field go away now. The defense can really get down on those routes, and they just can't run the ball to be a threat on that other aspect of things. And you've got them offensively into just field goal situations. Probably a little bit of where this game will come down to at times is if you can be good on one side and being efficient in the red zone versus knowing that you should be able to hold up against them in the red zone. Hey, they get some drives going, but they end up in that weird, wonky, 18 points for the game, 21 points for the game. You're able to put 28 up or whatnot because you've getting touchdowns to their field goals, which that seems a little bit of the pathway to success in this game for me and where we could get them.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. So they've allowed 100 rushing yards or more in 5 of their games, right? Including one game where they allowed 200, another game where they allowed 190, and another where they allowed 170. Meanwhile, their own rushing totals, check this out, 152 week 1, which is obviously fine, 72, 34, 3, 69, 75, 46, 44, 51. So I don't think they have a single carry of over 25 yards this year as well. I think I read that somewhere, which is historic. Most teams usually have many of those by week 10. So yeah, we are talking about a very one-dimensional team and a team that is also not doing the things they used to do really well. I remember in the preseason when we were talking about this game, one thing we said was, this is not the game you want to just keep running the ball into the middle on. This is not a team that you want to just pound the rock on because of Vita Vea. Well, it seems like you can still run on them this year.
Yeah. And to your point on this, these aren't teams that have done this good against them as far as running the ball that have exactly been juggernauts as far as running the ball goes. Pittsburgh doesn't run the ball amazingly. Carolina doesn't run the ball amazingly. Atlanta's pretty good, but Kansas City isn't. Green Bay has been kind of okay in running the ball this year. New Orleans hasn't been tremendously great with it. So it's not like they've been going up against the, top stack of teams that run the ball in this league and that they're dealing with that. Obviously the Ravens, I'd put in that marker. That's a game that you go, okay, you're going against one of the tougher rushing attacks there is out there, but it's not proliferated their whole schedule. It's been here and there, and they're just bad. To your point, they're just bad at stopping the run right now, and that's the place where there's a big vulnerability for you to hit in this game. And where I see the success is you hit in the run game. You got your 3 tight end sets, play action pass, and there's some huge open spaces in the back end because Tampa Bay's having to put those extra resources to stop the run because they don't trust their base personnel to handle it at that point. And that's just part of the nice part about having, Brendon, a dynamic rushing attack like we do, and the bind that it puts defenses in. R. Sanchez with a $5 donation. Thank you, Sanchez, for the donation. I appreciate you. Says, I hope the game comes down to one final play on the 1 yard line and Geno Smith hands the ball off and then points to his wristband. We got the wristband talk coming in, Sanchez. That would be brutal if he did. That'd be a brutal move. Somewhere Wilson would have one single tear, like the Indian on that old commercial would fall if that were to occur in that way. We're not going to dwell on it too much. Both me and Brendon talked a little bit about this before the show because it's something that's getting a lot of play out there, nationally right now. And there's a lot of back and forth going on between these two camps, being the Wilson camp and Carroll camp, in what's happening here a little bit. But of course, Sanchez is referencing the wristband that was mentioned by Coach Carroll this week on radio, that this is one of the things that's helped out Geno Smith a lot, and that the prior guy was very hesitant to utilize the wristband. Wilson responded back that, well, I won a lot of games not wearing a wristband. We're not going to dwell long on it. I do think people are a little interested in wondering probably where our mindset is on hearing a little bit of this news. Probably concentrate more on what it does to help the offense when we will on what it did as far as holding back the offense prior potentially, or whatever that encompasses. What are your takeaways from that little bit that kind of played out this week?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just so hard to know. Would things have been different if he did use the wristband? Like maybe it's just hard to really calculate that, right? Because we don't have a frame of reference. We don't have a big sample of games where he did use a wristband to communicate it. I will say, if I'm thinking about myself, if I'm trying to put together an offense, trying to have a quarterback running my show, I would definitely want them to wear a wristband. It strikes me as an advantage. But Wilson does have a little bit of a point when he says that I had success without that wristband. He certainly did. He's had some great seasons. He's had phenomenal games, and maybe the wristband simply wasn't something that was necessarily going to help him. So I can't really say too much to that. I will say when he responds back to it in that way, it makes it sound like the comment bugged him. When he says it like that, it sounds like it got to him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it did. I don't know. But I don't have much to say about this. It's an interesting anecdote, but I don't think we have enough evidence to say that it actually affected things.
Yeah, I'm probably a little bit more stiffer in thinking that it would have been a benefit to him. I don't think that it would have. I failed to find how it could have hurt having it. And there were a lot of times in recent years you had times where you had struggles getting the play in on time on the football field here in Seattle with Wilson. Same struggles we saw in Denver, right? To the point on the very first home game he played with the Texans, you had the fans chanting in the stadium the play clock down to try to help the offense avoid another delay of game penalty. So what you have to think with this, folks, is that the way that you call plays now is a lot different than when you called 20 years ago. Double X right, swing Z, double X onto bump. That's the play call in the huddle. Now the play call in the huddle could be two play calls. Double XB right, two jaunt jet with an XB bat, or XB double et rat, double do, dot bop, dibby dab dab dab. 1 second thousand, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5. To get all of those calls out is a lot. And if I've got if my offensive coordinator's got to get all of those calls out, that I then have to get all those calls out within the huddle, that's going to take a decent amount of time on a play clock that's only 25 seconds. It's going to have an impact. And if the offensive coordinator can just say to me 24, and I can look at 24 and just say the play call once, I'm saving that time. And where that benefits you then is you get to the line of scrimmage. I, as a quarterback, now have more time to assess. My opinion on this, Brendon, is if I have a quarterback who says that's not important to me and I don't care, and I'm not trying to throw Wilson shade here, I'm just saying this is my opinion on it. I have a quarterback who tells me that doesn't matter or that's not going to help them. That's to me telling me a quarterback who's not really as invested in the pre-snap stuff, right? Who's not as invested in getting the pre-snap stuff correct. Who's sort of like, I'll figure it out post-snap. And there's a way to play the game and be successful that way, but you're leaving money on the table at that point. You're leaving a potential advantage on the table.
I wonder if his counter argument would be, oh, I don't care about it, or does he think that in some way it would actually inhibit him? Does he think it would actually hurt him? I wonder if he would have a counter argument to that.
I'm open to that, but there's got to be something that I can think on my head off the top of my head that even approaches that making any sort of sense. And to me, it makes no sense. How does it hold you back saving time and getting up to the line of scrimmage quicker, especially for a quarterback in Wilson who had a lot of success in recent years with up tempo? We've run this up tempo thing where essentially you're just getting Geno up to the line of scrimmage, getting him early in the line of scrimmage, and then getting him up there to where he's got the deal. Because remember too, with this as well, Brendon, the other part of this as well is the offensive coordinator gets to talk to the quarterback to a certain point on the football field in his deal. It's another set of eyes. It's another opinion in your ear to help you out to make sure you're seeing things correctly in front of you. That goes off at a certain period of time. And if I'm spending my time in the huddle getting the play call out, that has gone off completely. I lose that ability, or maybe that little bit of advantage I can pull from that offensive coordinator to walk up to that line of scrimmage in that moment. To me, it more speaks to me, Brendon. I've had assessments on Wilson's play with the pre-snap stuff that's gone long back 2 years on this. It aligns right along in alignment with what I've seen in my evaluation on him in the pre-snap stuff and how he would look at stuff where it wasn't that important. It's like, I'll figure it out post-snap. And he was brilliant at doing so. He was a magician at doing so until some of the stuff started to fall away physically below the belt a little bit as far as his legs go to be able to do that sort of improvisation like he had once done. But it helps. It's absolutely a fundamental thing that's helped out Geno this year, Brendon, in that it gives him that extra time at the line of scrimmage. He's not ever rushed. He's always going up to the line of scrimmage and really having the time to kind of assess things for where they're at. And if you're saving time like that, again, I can't find, can you give me one thing you could have if you're play the part of Russell Wilson, like you said, keep going along the thought process of what you said with this being, what is it that it does to hinder you at that point?
I have no idea. I agree that I would want my quarterback to wear one. It sounds like it's all good, no bad, but also trying to give Wilson some benefit of the doubt, knowing that he is not this evil, awful, lazy person.
No, I don't think he is.
Right. Like there has to be something to it other than that, I don't want to. right? There has to be some element of the having it that he feels like would inhibit him, or he feels like it wouldn't help him at all if there was actually resistance. If there was ever a moment where the coaches came to him and was like, hey, let's start doing the wristband, and he was like, no, I don't want to. For that to be the case, it's not just him doing it because he just was in a bad mood that day. There has to be some impetus behind him expressing himself that way, I think. And I don't know what it is. I will say this, I don't know what it is, but knowing who he is as a person, I would assume that there had to be some, at least somewhat sensible reason for it.
I would hope so. I hope it wouldn't be Brendon that it doesn't look cool. I'd hope that isn't the reason. I hope that it doesn't look because it makes me look nerdy, and a lot of people already think I look nerdy, and I don't want to wear something that's going to make me look already more nerdy than people consider me. I don't know that it's that. I hope it's not that, but there's a part of me that wonders if it's that.
Well, if he cared about looking nerdy, would he really do half the stuff that he does? Like if he wants to,
I don't think he thinks it comes off nerdy. I don't think the stuff he does, he thinks comes off nerdy. When he's coming to training camp and he's rocking, and I don't want to go too far into Wilson stuff unless I know certain people are like, well, let's throw it. But I think he's trying to move that image in a different direction in recent years off of just being nerdy. And I think that he doesn't want to lean into it. I would say that on it. I don't think he's trying to do that. And, but again, we won't belabor it too much. I think we talked on, but I'll just say this. Tom Brady wears one,
I think Mahomes does. I think Allen does.
Allen one. So it's like, just saying, I'm just saying it helps. Hard to find any real detriment to it. And it's helped us this year beyond the Wilson aspect of it. It's helping Geno this year. It's part of what is allowing him to play the quarterback position as well as he is. It's not a big, huge thing, but it's a part, along with like having a great running game and having this. It all comes together to bring this offense where it is. Sanchez, thank you for that donation. I appreciate you. Garth Knight with a $10 dono. Thank you, Garth, for the double dono. Says the Orange Cat is John Schneider. Orange Cat doesn't put too much stock into nonsense. If there's a Pete Carroll cat out there, I'm listening to Bill Withers somewhere. Ain't no sunshine when you go. That's she's another cat out there. Yeah. She's a Schneider cat. She's a thinker. She's quiet most of the time, unless she's a little pissy. So thank you, Garth, for the donation, man. I appreciate you. Very kind of you. Robbie Red with a $2 donation says Nwosu is very underrated. Hope he gets to 12 plus sacks.
Yeah. At this rate, he's probably going to. Do we want him to, though? It's going to boost his asking price. Just saying.
I think his asking price is going to kind of get there regardless. In where it goes. And quite frankly, Brendon, you may be in a position of this with Nwosu where because the price gets too high, you have to just be in a position of thinking and outside the box of this if it goes too much. Or you might just need to ride out on the final year and see if he can double it up and say, look, this is a 1-year production. We're not just going to go over the board with this. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think his production's legitimate. I think he's really coming along as a player. I made the reference to him in the video I dropped yesterday, Brendon, to Chris Clemens. The very, very, I went back and looked at their combine scores, nearly the same 20-yard split on the 40. 10-yard split was faster for Nwosu. He's got about an inch longer arms, though they're both over 32-inch long arms. One was, 3 inches longer on the broad jump. The other one was 3 inches higher on the vertical leap. They're very similar guys. I think another guy we talked about just here with Tampa Bay that you could also make some comparisons with Nwosu is Shaq Barrett. Shaq Barrett was stuck with Denver in his first stop behind Bradley Chubb and Von Miller. Didn't have a pathway to get out there and start, a lot like Nwosu had with Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa there with Los Angeles and San Diego at the time, kind of at the split. Now he's getting his true opportunity and he's excelling in it. But Brendon, he's been awesome. He has been a complete player for us. He's right there with the Cliff Averill, Michael Bennett signings and free agency as far as what you're guiding, even on a value standpoint, even paying him $10 million. Would you say that?
Yeah. I'm hoping for the old carrot and stick this offseason. You've got a pretty good stick, right? He's got 1 year left on his deal at like, what's it going to be? What's the cap hit? 13 million, something like that.
Something like that.
That's a pretty significant stick for a guy who just had a career year. And you can give him there will be a carrot. It's going to be, I would estimate somewhere around, I think he could get like 4 years, 100 million, kind of the Max Crosby type deal. But maybe you talk him down from that a little bit because you have the stick.
Right.
So we got to negotiate with him while he's got that year left on his deal. I think that's a very important element here. We see this with other players too. They're far more willing to give a little bit of a discount if you're wiping out current years that are still remaining on that deal.
It may be enough to get it done. And it's also a pathway with it, Brendon, where if you want to sign to that big deal, you could start to then look a little bit further into this offseason through the lens of compensatory picks, making trades to bring in guys. Don't look towards free agency necessarily as much at that point, because I know we've got an okay amount of money, but you sign him to a big deal. Do we have any other free agents that you think we're looking at bringing back in here?
Ryan Neal has
you got
become
Neal.
one.
So you look again. Can you pull the trigger on him on a 3-year 18 with what you're spending on the safety position?
I think so. I think he's not just a safety is the thing. He's also a corner. Sometimes he practically plays linebacker. I know he's not a linebacker, but he kind of plays like it sometimes. If he keeps it up the rest of this year, I think I'm okay with it because you're going to be really cheap at corner for a little while, right? Because Tariq and Kobe are going to be on those rookie deals.
Yeah.
So I think I can get away with it. I don't mind that. Who else? Blythe, but if you bring him back, I want to bring him back as like depth. So I'm not looking to give him any more than like $2 million. So that's not a big deal either way. And if he's not willing to take that, then oh well.
Okay. Hard to get him back probably for less than the 4 you're spending on him this year, though.
Yeah, I know, but he's just too limited. He's just too mediocre of a player for me to want to commit to a starting role on. Mm-hmm. And that might actually make him want to leave more than anything, more than the money. He's like, no, I want to play. So if that's the case, that's fine. I understand he's building good camaraderie with his teammates. I understand he's doing some things pretty well, but he's a very average player. And we might really get to see the limitations of Austin Blythe this weekend, by the way, because if he has to go up against Vita Vea, it's going to be a bloodbath.
Are we going to get Joey Hunt? Are we going to get some Joey Hunt moments here in this game with Blythe on
Watch
Vita
out.
Let's not let him go one-on-one. If he goes zero tech, let's get some guard help in there on Austin. Let's not let him get embarrassed. I'll tell you though, you think about it through, Brendon, you have a Geno Smith domino. If you re-sign that and you re-sign Nwosu and you re-sign Ryan Neal, even with $40 million in cap space to spend at that point, you've got a huge chunk of that taken up between those 3 guys and the 4 picks that you have in the first 2 rounds and the cost for those draft picks to spend where you're spending there on that. Again, I think there's a little bit of an emerging storyline here into this offseason of leading into this direction and then taking advantage of maybe some compensatory stuff on the other side if you have other free agents who go, rather than playing more of the free agent market like we thought they might kind of do when we first kind of went into this year, as far as really trying to inject something into it at that point. It's a good problem to have. It's flexibility on it, Brendon, but I'm definitely in favor of doing it. I think we're both are at this point very much in favor of giving him that.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list of free agents. Rashad Penny. If you bring him back, it's going to be cheap. So whatever. Mm-hmm. Phil Haynes, but same. I don't think he's done anything to earn a big deal. He doesn't even play full time. Goodwin, I guess, but there are probably 100 Goodwins out there you could just as easily go get. Tyler Ott, actually a free agent. Both of our long snappers, free agents.
There you go. You probably bring back, that's not going to cost a lot, but it's a couple million. You stack it up, it can all kind of add up a little bit with that. So this is where that money could eat eaten if they do go back and re-up these guys through. But it's also a good problem to have at that point. You sign Ryan Neal, you don't really have to look at drafting safeties high at all. If you feel good about your corners, I know we'll want to go best player available, but then you're starting to knock out a lot of different positions then as you go into the draft that you don't have to go after because you're pretty well hemmed up there. Nwosu then solidifies your outside linebacker core completely at that point if you go extension with him. It would be if they do these re-signings, Brendon, it would free them up into the draft at that point to really go get whoever they want. They're not being driven to need in some of the re-signings as it comes up. I know we're looking really far out into the future on this, but we got to talk about Nwosu being a guy to be extended here. He's having that good of a season right now. And not only, they've talked about too, the leadership prop that he provides as well. That's a part that I think we shouldn't underrate. A guy that's been a really good locker room guy.
Yeah, well, let's remember, if his cap hit next year is 13 million, if you extend him, you can take that number down a little bit. It's not even more money. You might free up a little bit of money because so much of it gets backloaded.
A little bit, I think. The only issue is there was a 2-year deal with bonus. And so you still, if you sign him to a new deal, it means more bonus money. And then you have to add that bonus money with that last bonus money goes fully due. Well, fully due, but it's last deal year of the deal. So it don't matter. But that last bit of the bonus money, I think about 4 or 5 million is going to be added on top to whatever your yearly rate is in that first year. But you're right. It's not going to be, you can lower it down to a degree. You're not going to be up, even if you sign him to the $100 million deal on a 4-year deal like you proposed, that first year you could bring down to probably into the $14-15 million range if that was worst case scenario on his cost.
Right. And that would not be significantly more than he was due to make anyway. But I do hear that concern from Seahawks fans right now a lot, where they go, we don't have enough money to fill our roster because we have so much money wrapped up in some of these big time players. Like Lockett's money is starting to come due. Metcalf's is going to go up a little bit here. It is a real concern, but in my experience, teams always find a way to at least fill out the roster.
Yeah. And I think your needs are so much removed too of this. It comes down to what's your needs left. You still have the 4 picks in the 2 rounds to address some of those potential needs, be it left guard, center. If you wanted to go find a receiver out there, middle linebacker, you can go address those positions in that spot and find guys that can be good players at that point. So we have other means, if the money isn't there necessarily to spend it, to go and still upgrade this team and round things out, which gives us that leg up with it. But yeah, it's definitely going to be pushed up a little bit with some of these guys. I think also you look at, it's not just where our situation is a year out from now, Brendon, it's 2 years out, where in a couple of years from now, not after this offseason and next offseason, now you're talking about a position where you'll be able to get out from under the Diggs deal and the Adams deal. And if you really need to move around with Lockett's deal, you can. They could also move Lockett's money around a little bit too with how well he's playing. I mean, they have flexibility. They have flexibility and means right now if they want to go outside the box a little bit with it.
Yeah, you'll pretty much always have that unless you're like the Rams or something and you're just completely
you pushed yourself to you pushed your credit limit.
Or the Saints,
I
guess, and the Saints. And by the way, I know he's beloved around the league, but should Mickey Loomis be fired for trying to go all in with this team? Like, this is so egregiously bad.
I would say, it's a hard one to pull off there with that on him, because he's had the last couple of years a Hall of Fame coach and a Hall of Fame quarterback retire without being bad to go necessarily re-inject through. Yeah, I would say that he's in the wrong for not rebuilding after Peyton left and thinking that they would still be in a position to go for it. And that's not good on his part. I also have not been a big fan of him in the way that he's managed their cap situation. It's been very less about reactive and in the moment, and I haven't liked it. He's also done, though, a good job of finding talent in the draft. They spend their money relatively good. They don't really have a lot of bad signings. The Taysom Hill deal's a weird one, but outside of that, he does some good things. So I'm split a little bit on Loomis.
Yeah, it's just what's happened this year with him seems inexcusable. He literally acted like an 11-year-old kid playing Madden. He was like, "Oh, I lost my Hall of Fame coach. I don't have a quarterback. I don't care. All in. Trade my future first-round pick that's probably going to be a top 5 pick for a garbage left tackle."
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Like, I look at that and I go, he needs to be fired, because like like this isn't just about doing things wrong. This is about doing things incompetently. Like at this point, I wouldn't trust Mickey Loomis to run a McDonald's. I wouldn't trust him to manage anything. Oh man.
The first round pick that you brought up is that is the killer there. And that is maybe enough. I had forgotten about that, but trading a future first round pick for a team was in the state that they were in was a horrible move in the moment when them doing it. Philadelphia totally stole from them in that to get that pulled off. And it's not going to look any better in retrospect. So that could be a reason in itself to do it. You have the Michael Thomas situation where obviously he was done. I mean, like he's kind of been done the last couple of years. That's been the feeling on this. Yet you were bringing him back, hoping he was going to come back and finally give you, good play on the football field and be healthy and ready to go. Okay. Or that Olave was going to be the game changer for you on the receiving core. Just none of it really made a lot of sense to me in their approach with that. The pathway to their success and them getting to anywhere this year, say nothing of a Super Bowl, just into the playoffs was going to be hard. Yeah, you've got to call that ball. So what I always say, Brendon, remember I've got my 4 states teams fall into, right? And the worst state that you can fall into in my 4 list is the in-between phase, is the team that thinks it's an elite team, but it's actually in the in-between point. And that's just what they've had happen. They've thought they're an elite team, but you're actually in between. And now you're just going to be stuck there that much longer because you didn't recognize actually where you were at as a team in your whatever, in your your ascent, I suppose.
Yeah, I always talk about, one of the things as a guy in charge of a team, one of the things you have to do is be realistic about where you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've talked about this with the Falcons, like these last few years when they should have blown it up. They kept saying, no, we're going to run it back. We're going to bring Dan Quinn back one more year. He's going to figure this out. And all they did was waste time.
They did, because you can turn it around so fast if you make that choice, right, Brendon? If you say, I'm going to go in, we're going to rebuild it. It doesn't have to last a long period of time, but you need to make the firm decision of, okay, clip the dead money, offload the stuff that's no longer returning like it once did, and let's return this to a new, right? That's the reason you want to do it. It's not other leagues where you're stuck in purgatory for years if you make that kind of choice.
Right. I completely agree.
Kevin Low Nice with a $10 donation. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. It says, as long as we don't play flat, I think we win pretty easily. Go Hawks. Thank you, Kevin, for the $10 donation. I certainly think that you have, and I think Vegas has still got us as an underdog in this game, but I do feel like when I look at this schematically, how this matches up, talent-wise matches up, Tom Brady is definitely a guy you don't want to count out, count down, and bet against. But I do feel like you're playing better football right now than this team is on the other side of it. And it just looks a little bit to me with Tampa Bay of disjointed, not really fluid. They're just, everything looks kind of hard for them in how they're going about the way that they're going about what they're doing. So I would tend to agree with that. You as well, Brendon, or do you think that this is an edge spot for the Buccaneers coming into this game?
No, I'm feeling pretty good about it. I don't believe in magic. I don't believe there's anything about football that is magical. There have been times over the last 20 plus years where it seemed like there was just something going on in Tom Brady's quarter that made sure everything was just going to be all right for him. Everything was just going to break the way he needed it to break. And it seemed like there was something supernatural there. But then you watch a season like this where he can't get out of his own way. Nothing's really going right. It's all a disaster. They're trying to go for 2 against Tampa Bay to tie the game, and they get a delay of game. Like, would that ever happen to Tom Brady? You're trying to save the game, biggest play, and delay of game. Like you're learning that, there's nothing about football that's magic. You got to actually do things the right way. You got to go through the right processes, and good results will come if you follow those good processes. But I don't believe that there's anything like inherently magical about Brady that is going to guarantee he figures this out. Like, maybe he is just done. And if he's done, he's done. So I look at this and I go, we're a better team right now. We're playing better. I completely understand that Vegas just can't bring themselves to completely quit Brady. But I look at this game and I go, there's a lot we can do to take advantage of this.
I do as well. And I think that's a part of it for him is just beyond the offensive line's not quite as good as it's been. The receivers that he has on the outside right now, he's always been Wes Welker, Edelman type of guy, even a Gronk type of guy that didn't need to create a lot of separation on short routes, but Brady could just put it on a spot and knew Gronk could basically kind of just moss a guy or just take it away, outstrength them on it. He doesn't have those guys necessarily right now, and Godwin and Evans and those kind of guys that are the same sort of quick separators on the 3-4 yard routes. Doesn't have it at the tight end position either. I'll give Cade Otton some props. The UW kid's playing pretty good football for him. He looks pretty good on the field out there, but he's not Gronkowski, and he doesn't have the same chemistry with him that he had with Gronkowski. It's a rookie. How can he? But I think that's also part of this matchup that also makes it harder for Brady to overcome here in these kind of game or through the rest of this year. Is it's just the personnel's not going to get better, the line's not going to get any better, and the running game's not going to get any better. I can't think. Sometimes teams can turn that stuff around, but I don't know how you go with how bad they look right now and trying to run with an inability to create any holes with running backs that look a little bit slow. I don't know how that turns around on a dime. So Kevin, I agree, man. I think we got a little bit of an advantage coming in here. It feels like to me we're playing a little bit better football. 4 straight wins, running away with it. A Buccaneers team that's struggling to score 20 points. On a neutral site or in a site like Germany, which I'm hearing, Brendon, we got winning more Seahawks fans in Germany than anything else. What I've heard.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. I would expect that to be the case. Granted, I'm not hearing a lot of, non-biased sources. I'm in a Facebook group that is like for European Seahawks fans. and they're all getting they were all obviously very excited about getting to go to this game, but you're not going to look in there and see all the Tampa Bay fans or people who plan to go there to root for Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
So who knows? Well, we'll see when we get there, but it does sound like things are going to be in our favor.
What's cool about that is we got two different colors, so we'll be able to see in the stadium if it's more blue or if it's got more of the orange tint in what we're seeing from the fans and what they're wearing. We'll see how that kind of goes with it. Thank you, though, Kevin, for that dono. And Chronos1009, thank you for the $5 dono as well. I do appreciate it. It says, they can't run. Sounds like Taylor should get a healthy amount of pass rushing reps. Is he healthy? Is that
yes? He practiced in full yesterday and today. And yeah, it's a pretty good game for him to try to figure something out here. I've said that as much as he has been exposed as a very limited player this year, I do believe he has a role to play in the NFL. And this is the kind of game where he really could have a big impact. He could force a key turnover at a key time. And obviously I'm rooting for him. So yeah, I think this is a good opportunity for him.
Toughest point for Taylor in this one is he comes back. It's coming back at a tough time here because, as we know, Taylor's a left side of the field pass rusher. And what you got on that side is, though this Tampa Bay line's a little bit weakened and not as good, the one place where they're strong, their best offensive lineman and maybe one of the best right tackles in the league is Tristan Wirfs. So Taylor's going to be matched up against Tristan most of the time when he is trying to pass rush, and that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough. Tom's already getting rid of that ball in a second and a half, and then you have a really good player as far as that tackle goes too. But Taylor's got that unique quickness, and he's going to probably get a good amount of pass rushing reps. But with this as well, Kronos, if Tom Brady's a smart enough quarterback where if he sees Darrell Taylor on the football field and it can be any type of run-based situation, he will attack Taylor. He will know to go after him. That's a place that Brady will not let or ignore just for the sake of it at that point. So I think you got to just kind of run Taylor out there and this is part of why we've had this defensive success now so far, is just in passing situations only. 3rd and long, 2nd and long.
Yeah.
Put him out there in those kind of moments and let him
run. I think we learned our lesson there. So you probably will see that. But if we can get ahead early, then you're going to have a lot of those situations organically.
Yeah. And if you're Kronos, if you're stopping the run or on early downs, you are getting them into 3rd and longs then at that point, right? They're not into those 3rd and shorts, bread and butter spots where Brady wants to land. And then that does open the door to bringing in Taylor a little bit more. It would be nice finding a nice rotation with these 4 guys now. You've got Irvin, Taylor, Boye Mafe, and Uchenna. And Uchenna's run a little bit too many snaps this year so far. Let's get a little bit more of a load balance game between the 4 of these guys. That would be nice to see. Because I think we can have some good. I was looking at Brendon. We're up there around top of the mark as far as creating sacks this year. It blew me away, kind of looking at that sack snap, but we're up there right now.
Yeah, there was that 1 4-game stretch where we couldn't get any pressure at all, but the last month has been really good.
Yeah, it has been. So it's hopefully it's going to continue to come more together and we can be more of the same moving forward. But your Seahawks team is getting a lot of sacks and pressures in the league compared to other teams. Out and about, which I thought it is noteworthy, Brendon, and it does speak to maybe a little more sustained defensive success, being that this has been a big component of this turnaround. Thank you, though, Kronos. I appreciate you. Elliot, thank you for the $5 donation, Elliot Clark. I hope you're doing well out there as well. Says, Bucks are going to get whacked this weekend. Oh, we're going to do a mob style, Elliot? Am I going to have to dump a gun in the river? Am I going to have to dump a gun in the river, Elliot? We are a far better team, and they are playing like trash.
They kind of are. Even when they won last week, that was a very ugly game. That was a very unattractive, unappealing game that somebody just had to win at the end.
Yeah, you look at the wins that they've had this year. Maybe the Dallas one is the one you can look at, or the New Orleans one early on, but those are the first 2 games of the season. And NFL years is a long year. And you go through different ebbs and flows in different places where you're at from a team standpoint. And where the ebb has been lately is that, you've had 2 wins in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 5, 6, 7. So you've had 2 wins in 7 weeks, and you've not had any of in those 2 wins. You've not been running away with it like our Hawks have been running away with it in the last 4 wins. All last 4 wins, we've run away in the 4th quarter with it. We've won the games fairly. They may have been close throughout, but we've won them fairly close, comfortably when it was all said and done. Tampa Bay's not had that same kind of ability here over the last 7 weeks. And when they are winning, it's kind of eking out the wins I mean, hell, Carolina was up on them like 21 or nothing, 17-0, something like that into the second half.
I think it was 21-0 at one point.
I mean, yeah, is it Carolina? I mean, it wasn't like they were traveling across the country. It wasn't a 10 a.m. game, wasn't. And maybe they just played down to their competition on that. But I think it's more of, Elliot, your point on that. They're playing a little bit like kind of trash right now. I mean, they are 4-5, not by just happenstance, but by the fact that they deserve that kind of record by the way that they look. Still dangerous, still could play this stuff, still could turn it on, and still a Super Bowl team from 2 years ago in a lot of respects. But they're vulnerable, Brendon. They're bleeding. They're like Predator after they shot him the first time. If it bleeds, we can kill it. It's a little bit like that, right?
Right.
We got with Tom Brady's green blood on the vines. Chase Stern with a $10 donation. Thank you, Chase. Appreciate you. Says, where do you think Boye Mafe is going as a player? Also, do you ever watch boxing? Just curious.
Well, I haven't watched boxing since I was like 10. I used to like it, but it's not that interesting to me anymore. I don't feel like the boxers that are active right now are as interesting as the old boxers. I will say the first boxing match I ever watched was Holyfield Tyson 2. So I thought all boxing matches were just like that. I was very disappointed watching other boxing matches when I was young, because I was like, I thought they were all that crazy.
Yeah. No, they were. That was an insane one. I like boxing, not as much the modern stuff, Chase, too. To me, boxing took a kind of a turn in about the late 90s where boxers started to become more about scoring their points and less about actually knocking guys out. It's been fun watching a little bit of the matches that have gone on between like Fury and the other guy that he bought a couple of times here recently. Those guys had some relatively good battles going on. But I came out of the 80s too. Thomas the Hitman Hearns and Sugar Ray, and you had Tyson at that time. And I mean, there were so many good, Chavez, Mas, there were so many cool boxers, and they went out there to try to destroy their opponent. They didn't go out there to sort of like, patty cake their way through. They were going to come out and they had bad intentions on to try to do it. And there's a pride at play when those guys went out there and did what they did. And it just isn't as much that same kind of intensity at times as it was back in the old day. Where's Boye Mafe going as a player, Brendon?
I'm very high on him. I liked him a lot in the draft. I liked his combination of speed and his hands. Very good at using his hands. And the fact that he's already become a very good run defender is encouraging to me, because I look at his skill set and I go, this guy will be able to rush the passer. Maybe he's not great at it right now, but he will be able to do it. So you put that all together, and I believe that he's going to be an excellent pro.
As a run defender, better than LJ Collier is a run. Quick questions. Better than LJ Collier is a run defender.
I mean, he's out there every week getting snaps, and LJ isn't. So I got to say, yeah.
Better as a run defender than Frank Clark.
I never thought of Frank Clark as much of a run defender, so I'm going to say, yeah.
I was trying to think one better as a run defender than Rasheem Green.
Oh, I mean, that's not even close. That's not even in the same ballpark.
And maybe you can see where I'm kind of going with this, Brendon, because run defenders it ain't sexy to be a great run defender, but he is being so good as a run defender versus any of the young edge players that you've brought in here in recent years. You go back to Bruce Irvin, who wasn't a good run defender as an edge. Darrell Taylor is not a good edge defender as a run defender. So this is an anomaly to bring a guy in like this who's good in this aspect of it. He's also going back to, remember, preseason, he had 2 sacks in one game at that point. He's had a couple of cleanup type sacks this year, one where he went unblocked, another one where it was a kind of a high effort kind of position. I think the pass rush stuff is going to come along, Chase. It's a developmental thing a little bit. Look at a guy like Uchenna Nwosu on this roster right now. Did he start out as the pass rusher he is right now with the Chargers? No, he'd probably still be with the Chargers right now if that was the case. They probably wouldn't have made the Khalil Mack trade if that was the case. Guys are going to develop in their pass rush mode because it's a hard thing to learn. You've got to get your technician ability, your technician's license and all that stuff. You got to take your classes, Brendon. You got to go to the Cliff Averill school they got over there in Seattle. You got to go through all that. But I think it's going to come along from Chase. I do see shades of a Cliff Averill, but a guy that's even more than Averill was better at rooting down in the run game. Who's not going to just be relying on quickness and speed a little bit as Averill did. And Averill was good in that respect. He really understood how to use his quickness and still be a good run defender, whereas run defenders, so much you think about being powerful and rooting down and holding down at the point of attack. So Mafe to me is a guy with an upside of a guy who could become a pass rusher in the realm of where Averill was, who was a really good pass rusher. Wasn't a guy going to get you 15, 16 sacks a year, but get you 11, 12, 13 sacks maybe on a year. He's going to get to that point while also giving you really good run defense, which he already has in his bag. That's where he'll go. I think he might take a couple years to quite get there, Chase. I don't think we're looking at like by the end of the year, he's going to round into this point. But I think he will get there, and he's shown you enough of those flashes to now it's just about getting it to a point of consistency, not having to learn how to get to the flash state of things. Mm-hmm. You same place on that?
Yeah. I don't think he's ever going to be like TJ Watt getting the sacks, but he'll be really good.
Still really good. Thank you, Chase, though, for the $10 donation, man. It's Hoof with the $2 donation. It says, what kind of money would you give Mike Jackson, if any? Do I have to give Mike Jackson money? Isn't he? Don't I get restricted?
He's not listed on the free agent tracker on SpoTrack.
So as I understand it with this, it's so if you, with where he is at as far as his essentially rookie time period, or not rookie time period, but young first contract time period, Seattle can still put a tag, like a tag on him that's like just to what no other team can sign him. And then he's just on the hook for them to like $2 million a year, $3 million a year or something, I think, after this season. Does that sound right to you?
I think it's something like that. If we do have to pay him, I wouldn't give him that much because, I mean, if there's any area we've been able to act as an assembly line, it would be at the cornerback position.
Yeah. I mean, if there's a guy that I'm looking to slot to go out, and I'm pretty hard on that rule, Brendon, of saying, I really don't feel like with Carroll and the way he can teach those guys up, and you've gotten such great value out of guys in later rounds, to go and spend money, top flight money on a guy right now at this point seems like a misuse of funds a little bit at this point is how it strikes me. So I'm of the favor of saying the only guy that I'm going to end up maybe making a little bit of a difference on that is a guy that's a true game changer at the position, like what Tariq Woolen's showing himself off to be. So rather than I'm going to spend anybody, I'm going to spend only on one guy, Brendon. And if I'm going to spend it on one guy, I want it to be Tariq, as good as Mike Jackson is playing. So put him on the put him on that transition tag. It's Hoof. You get him for another year, and then you probably end up letting him walk in free agency a year from now. At that point, that's really probably the pathway to go on this.
Yeah, I mean, we paid Sherman because he was special, but we didn't pay Byron Maxwell. So kind of the same thing here, I think.
Didn't pay Brandon Browner, to your point on that as well. You know, another guy that was due to come up, and you said no, and you had reasons with Brandon too, probably, but that went beyond that. But I still think the team's very well aware of the fact that Carroll was able to get a lot out of a little. And now you have Tariq Woolen already on one side. I just think you look back into the draft and say, let's keep going this direction with it. Carroll, this is the one place that we're really solid. And not to mention, by the way, it's Hoof, we still do have Trey Brown on the roster as well.
Supposedly back after the bye week.
There we go. No doubt they're taking their time with him, Brendon, because they can. And they're not really rushed to bring him back at this point. It's a good little thing to have in our back pocket this year, Brendon, that Trey Brown situation. We don't talk about it a lot, but it's very nice. We've got him with some insurance there in the background of things. Bug vs. Windshield with a $5 donation. Thank you, Bug vs. Windshield. It says, out of a sub, but Walker. That guy reminds me of a perfect mix of Sean Alexander and Kurt Warner. Burst, speed, change, and change of direction and vision. Amazing. What was the out of sub but Walker part? Do you get that part?
I do not know. Is he saying he was a channel member and it expired? I don't know.
Oh, well, no worries. I'm not sure on that part. But I get what you're saying on the rest of it. Sean Alexander, Kurt Warner. I could see the mix a little bit with it. Alexander had a good probably 20, 25 pounds on Walker. I do think your Kurt Warner reference is really the one that's probably a little bit, I'd say if you're going those combination, I'd say he's probably like 75% Kurt Warner, 25% Sean, because Kurt was a lot of what Walker is. The stop and the start stuff in particular, that was Warner's bag. And because he could stop on a dime and get back up to speed faster than any other defender at the time, especially prior to the ACL injury. And that's exactly what Walker brings to the table, along with other things, to your point. That he does have that the vision that is reminiscent of Sean, and that he can go find the hole and be patient with that. So that's probably a part that does make a lot of sense as a mix there. But he's a special guy, and Brendon. I mean, we're looking at a running back here that has the potential now to not just be a guy that's one of the better running backs in this league, but a guy that we look at potentially. Maybe I'm overstating this, so correct me if I am. And that he's showing attributes of maybe having some special abilities here to him. We've been saying, no, LaDainian Tomlinson, you can't make that comparison to him. He's much, it's like a 80% of a LaDainian, but maybe he's more closer into the 90% range of a LaDainian.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Walker, he's kind of the whole package. He's got speed, elusiveness, agility, power. The only thing that I wondered with him, and I still am because we haven't seen enough of it yet, would be the pass catching and pass blocking, his ability to play on third down. So other than that, yeah, he's kind of the whole thing. You can compare him to just about anybody, and there are going to be elements of that running back's game that you can see in Walker, because he can run over people, through people, he can go around people, he can outrun people. I think is he the fastest ball carrier of the year still? That one run he had where he got to a top speed of like 22.5 miles an hour.
I believe he is. Yeah. I do think
so. Yeah, he's got it all.
Yeah. Maybe at some point I'll have to do a video, Brendon, on jump cut ability of Barry Sanders, the stop and start ability of Kurt Warner, and start going through just assembling Kurt Walker out of all these running backs. Might be an interesting little video to put together. Thank you though for the $5 donation, Bug Windshield, and it's nice to have him, man. It is very nice to have this kid, and we've got him for at the very minimum the next couple of years before you have to think about, do we pay, do we not, where is he? Is he staying healthy? So it's another good part of this team as we go into the future. Garth Knight with another $5 donation. Thank you, Garth, for all the donos on the channel. It says, Brandon, can you and Brendo tell these fellows in the chat that Pete allowed Bev to call the pass that ended up an interception in the Super Bowl? Throw it, Bev.
Yeah, he did. And he was, I think, correct to do so. I think it was correct to pass on that play.
Yes. I do not buy into the fact, I think, Garth, you're referencing, there's a little bit of this story that's broken here that's come out of somewhere out of the ether almost, that somehow Russell Wilson changed the play at the line of scrimmage to a pass, and it was actually supposed to be a run. I don't buy into any of that. I don't buy that Russell in that moment would have called to an audible. I just don't. I do believe it was Bevel's call to make. I don't think it was Pete Carroll telling Bevel to make that call. I think Bevel was making it on the back of where they had success that year down in the red zone, and that play had gone for something like 7 for 7. And when they'd used it inside the red zone, and it had produced like 5 touchdowns that year. On the other side of it, and this is a really key point in this play, because it gets brought out about, and I want you guys to really listen to this part on it for those folks out there that still wonder about this play. The play was not made to make Russell Wilson a star. The play was made because prior to that year, you have an offensive coordinator looking at the data on his sheet about what is successful and what has not been successful. And in that moment, he's going to lean to the things that they've been successful in. When teams have gone out with a heavy formation defensively against our offense down around the goal line, inside the 5-yard line, you got stopped every single time with the mighty Marshawn Lynch in that situation. Every single time that year, without fail. When those teams went heavy, meaning they're going with an extra defensive lineman on the football field to stop the run specifically. Counter to that, when you passed it out of that set with the pick play, you were 7 for 7 with like 5-6 touchdowns on the year. That's why Bevel made that call. It was based on nothing else but that moment. That's what you want an offensive coordinator to do in the moment. The call was right. Malcolm Butler, not the call was right. We should have done a play action, roll out, and let Russell throw it away if it wasn't there. You shouldn't have done a timing-based route where you're trying to pick Brandon Browner down at the goal line. That's dumb. But as far as from what built into the decision, it wasn't anything but that. Is that your read on it too?
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff to break down about that particular play, and we've all done it a million times. But sometimes you just have to blame the players. Sometimes you have to say Jermaine Kearse didn't block well and Lockett didn't run a good route. Now, you shouldn't be asking Lockett to run routes because he's not even a wide receiver. He's a special teams gunner. You shouldn't make the play of the game be on his shoulders. Okay. But I think people go way too simple with that. Lynch was by the way, you're right. Lynch was actually very, very bad in X and goal situations. I think from the 1 yard line, he was like 1 for 5 that year or something.
Yeah,
not good. So
it wasn't good. And the Patriots were bringing out that heavy formation to force you into throw. They were telling you it's like, so it wasn't a guarantee that Marshawn was going to get a call. And again, I would have gone with a rollout with Russell and had him throw it away. You can make a call, but the decision to pass against the front New England was bringing out in that moment was smart in their process. It wasn't smart in the results. And like you said, they had just some guys made some bad plays in that moment, but it's not on them trying to like make Wilson the star, or that Wilson called some audible. Those things did not exist in that moment. That wasn't at all what I think went on to it. So you're right. You're right on this one, Garth. 100%. Thank you, though. Appreciate you, man. Chewy Suarez with a $1 donation. Thank you, Chewy. I hope you're doing well tonight. I do appreciate the support on the channel. Nothing you're saying in there, just donating. So appreciate you. Daniel Bailey with a $2 donation says, you think having veteran presence has helped the pass rush?
You mean Bruce I assume this is referring to Bruce Irvin.
How about Uchenna too?
Yeah, Uchenna as well. Uchenna definitely. Bruce Irvin possibly. I mean, he's played pretty well, and there might be some leadership stuff going on there as well. We all know that Adrian Peterson being in the building was very good for Penny, and maybe, but that kind of stuff is just hard to know about because we're not there in practice. We don't know what kind of role he's taking. We don't know if he is taking that leadership role. So it's very possible.
Yeah, as Brendan says with this, Daniel, it's a lot of guessing on our part. I have moments like in the preseason with Uchenna being mic'd up and talking to Johnson on the sideline, really guiding him through, really being active on watching Johnson on the field and reacting to what Johnson's doing. This is a preseason game. You heard Clint Hurt in his recent press conference this week talk about Uchenna as a leader as well, and what he's provided is that. It cannot hurt having two guys like Uchenna and Bruce Irvin in the room with these young pass rushers to help bring them along. And I think it can do nothing but help, and it's likely very much to help them and these guys and bring these guys along that much faster. Versus if you had Boye Mafe and Darrell Taylor as your 1-2 here, and then we just had a couple of guys behind that were also young guys trying to just kind of find their way that didn't have a whole lot. I don't know if we've had necessarily in recent years outside of a Dunlap, maybe that same kind of guy that's who's been everywhere, seen it, done it, can maybe provide that little bit of extra advice that a player needs to get them up over the top. And sometimes it's a small thing. It's like the reference, this is a basketball story, Brendan, but it's the old Charles Barkley story about coming in the league and trying to find the right weight. You know, and he was coming in the league, and the round mound of rebound is what they used to call him coming out of Auburn. And he was a guy that came in the league too heavy. And he had a veteran presence there at that point, a guy that he actually listened to was like, we need to get you in shape. You need to learn how to be a pro. You need to start doing this. You need to start doing that. And they did this like scientific experiment to kind of find out, you know, right where the right weight was for Barkley and where to play at in his pro career. But it took that veteran guy. It wasn't a coach who came up there and did that to him. It was a fellow player that helped, you know, provide that guidance. And you can find, I think, an equivalency with a veteran, not necessarily that same kind of note for note way, but he'll know here's what you need to do to fix this thing that you need to clean up in your game, you know, and maybe that's something those guys, I have to think it helps, Daniel.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't know who the leader is actually going to be. Sometimes a guy will fit all the attributes of being that kind of leader, and then he just isn't that mentor. Like I remember right after the draft, a reporter asked Tannehill, "Are you planning on mentoring Malik Willis?" And he was like, "No."
Yeah. He was salty about it. I think even you felt like they should never have drafted him. The hell with that.
Yeah. Tannehill actually seems. I mean, I like him, but he seems like kind of a prick. Actually,
there's some douchey elements that seem to be coming off the edge of him. Yes, just a little bit with that. Especially he gives a response like that, where it's like, even if you don't plan on being that tutor, don't be a complete dick about it in the press and like, no, he's on his own. I'm not throwing him a life preserver. He can drown for all I care. It's kind of like that same energy that he was bringing. So yeah, Daniel, it's going to help. It's going to help, and not just into this year, but into the future, I would bet, as far as these guys and their presence in that locker room. Kevin Lonice with another $10 donation. Thank you for the double dono, Kevin. I do appreciate it, man. I thank you to everybody as well for all the support on the channel here. Very kind of you. If our secondary can get Tom to hold the ball for longer than 2 seconds, it could be a long day for him.
Easier said than done, but sure.
It's Kevin, it's very, very insightful to bring that up, because this is really where a key is of this offense for the Buccaneers. They're not going to run the ball. They're not going to be hitting you deep. You know, they're not going to be doing a lot of that. It's going to be dink, dink, dunk, dink, dunk, 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 dink, dunk, dink. So you've got to be able to squeeze those routes down. What I like about this matchup coming into this, Kevin and Brendon, is the last 4 weeks, you've played offenses that are really wholly built around trying to attack in their short passing attack. So you've had everything set up in front of you to be able to take on this matchup by dealing with these teams that are going to essentially try to do the same thing that Brady and company are going to try to do. I mean, that's you played the Cards twice, dink dunk, dink dunk. You've got the Giants, who don't have a receiver who has even yet one 100-yard receiving game this entire season, dink dunk, dink dunk. Then you've got the San Diego Chargers, who it's odd, but they love to have Justin Herbert throw behind the line of scrimmage or at the line of scrimmage.
They have to right now because of the offensive line and Keenan Allen's out. It's kind of been forced on them, I think.
It has, but it's also been something for them that's gone back for years, the last couple of years with Herbert there, where they've been an odd offense in the respect of them not pushing it up the football field consistently as much, being more into that stage of things of everything just being short. So Kevin, you've set up to do this. The key will be, can Carroll, and he's done a great job of this with the defense, pull off the reins a little bit on protecting against the deep stuff in order to then press the shorter routes. Because if you press the shorter routes, it means you're going to open some stuff up a little bit more on the deeper end of it. You're going to trust your cornerbacks one-on-one more in situations. And that's what that will take for you to do so. They've been willing to do it up until this point. Will he be willing to do it in this particular game? And that will be a big key. As I said, it's one of the reasons I say it's very insightful you see that, because that's really a big key to this game to me.
Yeah, how many offenses in the NFL right now are built around throwing the ball deep down the field a lot? The Dolphins are probably the president of that club right now. Yeah,
Dolphins, and even then they do a wide. They go back and forth between that measure of short to long, right? Because they'll throw so much in the bubble screen, short pass, let the guys just go take it and try to house it. Buffalo, well, is Buffalo more gotten dink and dunk, I guess, over that, even with Allen? Are they more in dink and dunk?
I mean, they got a decent chunk of going deep. I'd say they would, at the very least, be somewhere in the middle. But yeah, they're a pretty good example. Like Denver, despite having Wilson, doesn't really go deep very much.
No, he's done a lot more of the shorter stuff this year than in recent years past. Not the Raiders. Mahomes and company will utilize a little bit more. It seems like less with Tariq gone, though. It doesn't seem as much a part of their offense as much. So you're kind of onto something in this. I think your point being is that this is more of a league now that has built towards maybe more of the short passing and just get the ball in the guy's hands quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thinking it through. Like the Rams they keep it pretty close to the line of scrimmage, right?
Yeah, they do. I mean, they haven't been able to find a way to get Allen Robinson and put into the offense consistently at all, right? And that's, I think, it has everything to do with because you're just going back to Cooper Kupp on the little short option routes on the inside so much.
The Packers don't push the ball down the field.
No, they don't. Maybe the Vikings a little bit.
Yeah,
they're willing to. Their Cousins will be willing to kind of open it up a little bit down the field to a degree on that.
So not a lot.
No, you could count them on your hand, probably, the number of teams that are truly trying to attack, deep. But I would say Tampa Bay on the other end of that, you also have your teams that are more rigid in their approach of trying to attack short and everything being just in that. They're as much, I think, as extreme as anybody else in that other role of it, and just trying to hit you short and steady all day and work their way up the field.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, though, Kevin. Appreciate you on the dono. We got Scarecrow Bar 66 with the $2 donation. Thank you, Scarecrow. What kind of dog do you think Carroll has? A big old German Shepherd?
Seems like more of a cat person to me.
Does he to you? I always struck as a kind of a dog guy to me a little bit. Okay, but if you had to go with a dog, if you had to put Carroll with a dog, what dog would you put him with?
Oh boy. Well, he's older, so you don't want a big dog because they're going to break your hip. You can't handle bigger dogs when you're older. So it's definitely something at least medium-sized, maybe even a small dog. Not a toy dog, though. That's too much.
No, I think I got it. What about a border collie? High energy. He likes that.
Yeah. I grew up with a border collie, so I like that dog.
I like it too.
Yeah, I can go.
I just match it with that. That's just where I see him with. That'd be like just the kind of dog, and he'd be talking about how smart it is all the time. Showing you what tricks he taught it. So I'll go that one. Scarecrow. I agree with Brendon. Probably middle-sized dog. He'd go right. Mm-hmm. He'd go right in between on that one.
Yeah.
Thank you for the donation, man. I do appreciate it. Robbie Red with another $2 donation. Thank you for the double dono, Robbie. Trade up to the top 3 pick if we don't re-sign Geno.
No, I don't think so. You'd have to give up way too much.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at Robbie Red here. Let's just say Denver finds a way to get to like 10 this year, and you're picking top 10. And then you're picking somewhere in the 20s, like 22, 23, let's say or unless it's 32. Is 10 and 22 going to be enough to get you to the top 3, Brendon?
No. Look what the Niners had to give up to move up. What was it? 9 spots.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So you're really looking at probably those 2 first-round picks, probably another second-round pick, and probably a little bit more beyond that, maybe even a future third. If not even more in this draft to do it. I don't think it would cost you 2 firsts and 2 twos to go up there, because the thing with that San Francisco trade, of course, Brendon, is it's a 3-year first round pick situation where 1, 2, 3 years. This year, you'd be giving them the majority of the picks into this draft, which does give you a bit of a benefit with that. But Robbie, I don't think that we want to do that. The other thing with this is there's other teams out there that have multiple first round picks in this upcoming draft. And you could end up getting into a bidding war, especially with as few top-end quarterbacks as there are that exist. And that's not a place where neither I nor Brendon want to land either, into getting into bidding wars on rookie quarterbacks that we're not certain about.
Right.
That's going to make us a little bit nervous, just a tiny bit. But thank you, Robbie. Now let's just stay with our picks, and we'll figure out there's some other quarterbacks in this draft you're not picking in that top realm that have some talent to them and could be good enough for this offense, especially this offense is stacked up as they are. Bug versus Windshield with your second donation. Thank you, Bug versus Windshield, with a $2 dono. Says Gehen Seahawks. That's German for go Seahawks. Gehen Seahawks. Gehen. 6:30 a.m. Sunday. That's right, folks. Get those alarm clocks set. You've been learning German?
Which celebrity of a German origin should do the narration for the opening of the game? You know how when Seattle won the Super Bowl, they had Kurt Russell.
I want Waltz. I want Christoph Waltz.
Okay,
but I want him in Hans Landau from Inglourious Bastards kind of tone. I want him to be doing the narration with that kind of just cold-blooded energy.
Yeah, I'm good for that. That would be good. I'm good for it.
Hey, Gay and Seahawks, Bug versus Windshield. Let's go, man. Let's Hawks. Let's show those German folks how we play football out here in the Pacific Northwest. Let's show them why they follow this team, why they cover this team out there. Well, we've got that country on wrap. At least that's what I'm told. That's just what my fellow German Seahawks fans tell me. They say, well, you have it on wrap out there. It's all Seahawks fans. Thank you though, man. Appreciate you. Mumbles with a $5 donation. Thank you, Mumbles. Another quarterback being a diva? No way. Also, hi, Brendo and Brendo. Better get that pillow ready on your desk on Sunday. Get it nice and fluffy. Yeah, it's going to be.
Yeah, my sleep schedule's actually been already, for other reasons, we reworked to where this isn't even going to be that different for me. So I'm actually kind of doing okay with it. I'm not too upset about the early get up time.
It's going to be hellacious for me. I'm going to be an angry elf Sunday morning when it comes to getting up that early, because I am not a morning person, but it's going to be fun too. It's a different type of time and different type of time in the game. It's going to be kind of just fun. It's just kind of a different thing. And I'm interested to see how the German crowd does it, if they're into it, if it's like super loud in the stadium, or, it'll be kind of fun to watch how that, sort of plays out. So, yeah, I'm gonna be a rough one, Brennan. Mumbles. It's gonna take me a little while to wake up that day. I'm gonna need an hour into the telecast to kind of get my head right on that one. So no doubt there. And yeah, I think the quarterback diva age, we're in the middle of it right now, but I think you're starting to see some of the beginning of the end of this year with some of those quarterbacks who have been some of the bigger of the divas out there starting to kind of now get the other end of it. I don't know. I'm gonna say they're getting bit for being divas necessarily, but it's certainly starting to kind of maybe swing back the other direction here.
Well, if you're not playing it at an extremely high level, it's not worth it. Like you can deal with the Aaron Rodgers stuff when he's playing it at an MVP level, but like this, now they're stuck with him for a long time because of the contract. So you're not dumping him, but yeah.
No, it's definitely something teams are going to get wore out of real quick if that level of play. Brandon's point on that isn't as good. Thank you, though, Mumbles. I do appreciate you, man, for the $5 donation. Roxanne Roll, thank you for the $20 donation. Wow, Roxanne, coming in strong tonight. Appreciate you on that, as ever. One of my longtime subscribers to the channel, one of my OGs on the channel here, Brendon. Says, I'm starting to feel the Hawks are evolving into the accountability and trust brotherhood that made the 2012 to 2014 Hawks so special. 2014 up to a second and goal interception. 3 weeks ago, I couldn't see it. What do you think on that?
The team certainly seems to like each other. There certainly seems to be a lot of good example of somebody getting along quicker than I expected would be Nwosu. When we signed Nwosu, I was like, okay, that sounds cool. But I was thinking he was going to be a 1 or 2 year stopgap while we figured out our edge position. And no, he looks like he's going to be around for a while. So you see how much he likes it here, how much he seems to like playing with this team. You see that kind of stuff, and it encourages you. You also see things like, remember the dust up with the defense on the sideline against the Saints?
I do.
Where
Brooks
and Diggs. And then I guess there was a players-only meeting after that game, and the defense has been nails ever since then. You hear about that kind of stuff, and you go, this is going in a really good direction.
Yeah, the key to getting it there, Roxanne, the coaches talked about this. I remember this really distinctly about the time when that was starting to happen, that special feeling you're talking about that was built. I think you used the right terminology there, accountability and trust as the brotherhood went. And Carroll talked about it being the coaches can take the players up to a certain point. And they take the players up to the point and teaching them along, and they guide them, and they certainly are still there to support them. But for then the team to get into that next level of things, to truly then get to the next gear or to the brotherhood that you speak about, it takes the players themselves taking ownership. It's them not just taking ownership of their play, but them being the leaders and holding their fellow players accountable. If it's just coming from the coach saying, you got to be better on this with cover 12, and you got to come in here, that can only go so far. To get it fully rounded out, you have your fellow guy, your peer standing next to you going, why did you miss this block with this? You've got to be there with that. I'm there with that. He's there with that. He's there with that. You're the one guy not there with that on point with this right now. And I think that they are getting to that stage again right now. That's just the general feeling of it. It does seem to be in the same place. I think that's why people are feeling the echoes of the 2012 type season here with this team and how they've been playing. But it comes from that, Roxanne. And I think that, yes, you're seeing that because you're feeling that from those players and the way they talk about this team and their approach. Look at the way Geno and even guys down to DK and Tyler and the way that they discuss it, and they get it. They understand it. I mean, for all the talk about DK being a diva, I haven't heard a lot about that this year, have we? About a year where he's going to get paid, but now he's not going to get his targets and he doesn't have Russ here anymore. Now he's going to be all mad. That's what a lot of people told me. And it's like, no, instead you're seeing the leadership that we thought was there with DK that would come with maturation. It's not to say he's a perfect player or perfect in the league, but it's just helping that process along. You saw him being a guy, for instance, that helped Tariq Woolen a lot in this preseason, right? Where you saw them working one-on-one even after practices together, him trying to help a guy who's not even an offensive guy, Brendon, a guy on the other side of the ball, but he can see the big picture and helping a guy like that and how it helps the team off into the long-term future by being that guy.
Right. Like, it doesn't seem like there's anybody on this team who is like not completely bought in to this. I'm trying to think about it here. It seems like, maybe, I can't think of anybody. It's kind of what happens when you have a team full of younger guys who just entered the league. Yeah. I think we're starting like 6 or 7 rookies. We have other rookies playing significant roles. That's just probably going to happen. They're humbler. They've got more to prove. They're just trying to, get their name out there so they can get paid in the future. And you get the results that you get. Yeah.
But your eyes aren't lying to you, Roxanne. You're seeing exactly that start to play out. I don't know if they'll capture the spirit in the same way that prior team did, where that was extreme accountability. That was guys that were all ball all the time, that they had a one-track mind towards greatness. I don't know if we've gotten to that spot yet where we can say that this team's onto that land of it, but you are getting into that direction. You're moving in down the line to that. And especially if you continue to add players along this realm of things, you're going to get there again, because I think you got a nice base to land there. Thank you though, Roxanne, so much for the $20 donation, and well cited by you. Well cited. Hopefully they can become that. Kevin Mullen with a $5 donation. Thank you, Kevin. It says, any of you disappointed for not bringing in another inside linebacker or interior defensive help before the trade deadline?
No, because the team is playing so well right now. I mean, I wouldn't have minded bringing in somebody else, but I'm not disappointed in it because the proof is in the pudding. The unit is playing so well right now. Clearly, something is working.
I share Brennan's sentiments on this as well, Kevin. It comes down to, when you talk about wanting to see a deal or not wanting to see a deal, you also have to kind of get specific and going, what's the deal they turned down? What was out there that was available? And a big part of this, Kevin, trade deadline was talked about as being the most active trade deadline in NFL history, which sounds pretty impressive at first. But then when you look at it, you go, but there was 10 players moved. Like, let's put it in perspective. The most active in NFL history, 10 players. It's not a lot of guys being moved, Kevin. There's not a lot of people. There's not a lot of teams out there willing to offload guys. And I think you had more of what was going to be a seller's market here. And what that drove, Kevin, was a situation where teams had to pay more to go and get guys of impact. The Roquan Smith trade and how much they had to give up to go get him, a guy that's due to be a free agent, guy that they're going to have to pay. I think the cost was just too exorbitant in this trade deadline. And there wasn't a real clear deal to be out there that was going to be made that was going to help you out outside of some of the guys that you'd be interested in that went for way too much draft capital. So I just don't think there was a good pairing between us. My opinion on this, Kevin, is that you have so many sellers, or it's such a seller's market because the fact there's so few teams in completely sell mode of being, we want to fire sale this thing and get ourselves turned around and rebuild towards next year. No teams are making that. Last 2 years, very few teams have made that actual call and said, okay, let's do it. Like you used to see, I think 5-6 years ago. Is that your feeling on it too?
Yeah. And like a great example would be what Carolina did. They were the one team that was clearly in complete fire sale, but they decided, let's just overvalue all our assets, like extremely, and see if anybody bites. Let's find a sucker. Let's not trade unless we find the sucker. I imagine more teams are going to employ that strategy going forward. Honestly, it worked. It worked so well.
It did. I mean, even if you have 5 players you want to be moved, but you only end up able to move 2 of them, but the 2 that you have maximum return on, it's not the worst of strategy type situations to go at to try to take that direction of it. And so I think that's a great example with Carolina, Kevin, and looking at that team. They had easily 5, 6, 7 guys who could have been really good assets to move if they were just willing to be reasonable in what they were asking for, but they weren't. They wanted 2 first-round picks for Burns, who you then have to trade for and then pay. Nobody was going to be willing to give that. So I think, well, supposedly they turned down the 2 firsts from the Rams. So it was going to cost even more, I guess, because the Rams gave them already 2 ones on that deal. So just weren't any partners, Kevin. There just weren't any partners. There weren't any players available. You just had to kind of run with what you had. And it may be for the best at the end of the day. We might have saved some draft capital for a guy that wouldn't have really done much more to move the needle. Thank you, though, for the donation. Peter Ryabi with a $2 donation. Thank you, Peter. Let's everyone bet on Hawks. We will all be rich. Well, Vegas keeps underselling us, man. I'll tell you what.
Don't get mad at Vegas. Get even. Don't get mad.
Right.
Get even.
Don't get mad. Get rich. Yeah, they're going to figure out at some point here, Peter, I guess, but we got some haters out there in Vegas.
Yeah. Apparently, not only tangentially related, but Chris Sims has picked us to lose every game so far this year.
Has he really? What's interesting with him too is he was the guy given like all of the midseason awards he was given to the Seahawks, like from Coach of the Year to Rookie of the Year. So that's kind of funny, I guess. But he's also, he's best friends with Shanahan, dude. So he's secretly a Seahawk hater and somewhere in his heart because he wants his buddy to be doing riding high on the division. You know what I mean? That's what that is. Thank you, though, Peter. I do appreciate it. Seahawks 17 with the $5 down now. Thank you, Seahawks 17. K9, you say Barry Sanders, I say Thurman Thomas. Both great footwork, but TT was a better receiver. I remember him and John L. every year were among the league leaders with yards from scrimmage.
Thurman Thomas was before my time.
Yeah, Thurman, I like Thurman, Seahawks 17, and I certainly wouldn't make the first comparison of Walker to Barry. Just the jump cut is very same for me between Barry Sanders and Kenneth Walker. That's the one place I see a lot of echoes. I could see some Thurman Thomas as well. Thurman felt like a little bit bigger back. Great back though. One of the best of his era. Big reason why the Bills went to 4 straight Super Bowls in the early 90s was Thurman Thomas. They also ran Seahawks that K-gun offense, which was the hurry up at a time when nobody was running hurry up. So they got a lot of extra plays out every year to the Buffalo Bills within that offense. A lot of extra kind of throws and yards and carries. But he was fantastic. Love Thurman Thomas. Great vision guy too. So definitely some shades of that Seahawks 17 between him and Kenneth Walker in that respect. He felt just a tiny bit bigger to me though than Kenneth.
From my very limited memory of him and what I've seen of him, I would agree.
Yeah, a little more between the but look, Kenneth's good between the tackles too. So maybe you're onto something with that. But Thomas was a great receiver. He had some great hands. For a guy who had to play in that Buffalo weather all the time, Brendon, and making catches at times in that, he just didn't miss a beat. That guy. He was a good player. Those Buffalo teams would be remembered a lot more in detail, I think, if they just won one Super Bowl of those 4 that they missed out on. Thank you, though, Seahawks 17. I appreciate you, man, so much. Mumbles with a $2 donation. Appreciate you as well. Says B, when refs throw the first flag, when refs throw the first flag a little bit.
No, he's saying this is what you're going to say because you're going to be in such a bad mood because you're going to be up at 6:30.
Oh yeah, no, I am. I'm going to be angry about everything, Mumbles. I'll be basically cursing out everything. I'll be like a sailor on the stream. Like it might get a little rough for the first 45 minutes. Okay, it might be a little touch and go. All right, but that's just me getting through my process.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to stream the game or not, but it's going to be interesting to see what I'm definitely going to tune into yours at some point to see how's it going over there.
If we're winning, it'll be a big smile on my face, and I'll be like, I got up at 6 a.m. for this. It'll be, which in itself could be entertaining, I guess, and how that plays out. But yeah, I'm going to definitely be, especially if we get one of those penalties on Tom Brady like he had against the Chiefs. What was against the Falcons earlier this year, where Brady Jarrett tackles him and sets him down like a newborn baby on the field, and they call a roughing the passer on him.
Yeah, you know what's going to happen eventually? Some pass rusher is just going to be like in for a penny, in for a pound, and try to just end his career. Like eventually you're going to irritate a pass rusher enough to where he just goes, okay, next time I'm just going to take out his knees. I'll take my penalty, but at least his career's done.
Oh, if it's a penalty either way, if I'm going to get nailed for it either way, I might as well get my money's worth.
Yeah, I can't believe James Harrison never did that. Like I kept waiting because he was so mentally unstable. I kept thinking like he's going to just start taking out knees at some point because he's so sick of these calls, and the NFL will never recover from this. They're going to have to ban him for life, and it never happened. He kept a lid on it.
I wonder if that's why they did, though. I wonder if that's why he does, to your point, that the ban for life thing, because he was a guy for a moment there, he was having like every other week those insane hits that were just nearly killing guys on the football field, and so it was like, I wonder if the NFL told him like, you keep this up and you're out for years at a time. Where he got checked on that just a little bit. I would bet.
Yeah, I mean, like they never did anything about Sue when he was like kicking people in the knees and stuff, trying to knock them out. So I don't know if they didn't do anything about Sue. Remember that one time he took out Aaron Rodgers and they didn't do anything? I was shocked by that.
Yeah. Well, and Sue definitely played on that line too. That I don't know. Did Sue have as many of those moments? I just think some of those moments with Harrison where he'd hit those receivers in the court. I think he took Colt McCoy out on a scramble on one play I thought he killed Colt McCoy. I thought he took his life on the field. Like, I don't know if I thought that was Sue. Sue always just had those dirty moments that were like, he's stepping on a guy's arm or kicking a guy in the groin, or, like he's just doing that like dirty stuff for the sake of like dirty stuff. Like not that it couldn't still hurt somebody, but it was a little different dirty where Harrison just felt to me violent. He felt to me like he's out here to try to murder somebody on this field. And Sue played with an edge, but not quite that same. Maybe I'm off on that, but it just felt like a little different edge with that, just a tiny bit. But Mumbles, you're awesome, man. Thank you for the double dono. I appreciate you. And I'm gonna be trying to put a smile on that early in the morning. But 6 a.m. is early, and I don't know who decided that humanity should ever be waking up at that time, but they should be shot and buried in a very, very shallow grave. Washington FistQuest with a $2 donation. Thank you, Washington FistQuest. Says Hope Ramestein does the halftime show. That'd be awesome. Do Hawks me. Do Hawks me. Do Hawks me.
Yeah, I had a friend when I was a teenager who was big into Rammstein, and he showed me a little bit of it. But I only know a few songs, but I'm not against it.
I'm not against it either. They go hard, and that's certainly football music, right? If they do go halftime, I need to see some fireworks, though. I want to see. You can't have that kind of heavy metal without the old school like 80s style explosions and stuff like that going down, just to provide a little bit of extra ambiance to it. But let's go, man. Germany needs to go all in, man. Make this an event. It's your first football game. Like, yeah, bring out all the big guns. I want them. I want Scorpion. Okay, let's have Scorpion open for him. Thank you, Fish Quest. I appreciate you, brother. Ken Taylor with a $5 donation. Thank you, Ken. Says, when is the soonest we can trade Diggs and Jamal without hurting our team economics?
Well, Diggs after next season, because it was just a 3-year deal. So at that point, he would have 1 year left, and you could move on if you wanted to. I think Jamal's still 2 years out, though.
Yeah, I think is Diggs negative $8 million if you moved on this offseason? Does that sound right?
I think it's more.
Is it more than that? Okay. So yeah,
I think it costs more to let him go than it does to keep him this offseason.
Yeah. In both of the cases, it's just not, it doesn't make financial sense to do this offseason. Next offseason, both of them that you could do so. It'll be a little easier to get out of Diggs' deal, a little less pain. Jamal, it's going to be not horrific because you've gotten through a couple of years of the new deal at that point. So half the bonus money is wound out, but you'll still have half the bonus money left that has to then incur. And then that goes up against what he has as far as his base salary on the year. And that's probably still going to drive in a fairly good amount, Ken, of negative turn. So
yeah. And Diggs is playing fine. So I don't think that's a solution that's going to fix anything right now, personally.
Yeah, Ken, I think it's just you're riding with what you got on it right now, and you're just gonna have to kind of roll with it for what you've sunk into the cost of it, and hope it can manage itself out on the other side of it. So, it's a tough situation, but there's nothing you can do. You're not gonna want to eat that dead money next year just for the sake of eating it. You're not gonna want to pay to offload them just to do so if it makes more sense to hold on to them from the cost. But thank you, Ken. I appreciate you. I think 2 years, both those two guys are going to be here for the next 2 years, right, Brendon? I mean, is that we can probably say that?
Oh yeah.
Both of them are here for the next 2. So
oh yeah, 100%.
Maybe not longer after that, but at least 2 seasons. Guard Knight with a $5 donation. Thank you, Garth. Says Germans love David Hasselhoff. Wait, a Scorpion's appearance would be incredible. See, you read my mind there, Garth. You read my mind, man. That would be a good one too. A little Scorpions to Ramstein. Just keep amping up the energy.
It's got to be a good game though, too. I mean, like, imagine if they showed up and it was like that. I think there was a London game one year that was like Giants 7, Dolphins 3. You can't have one of those. You got to have a good game.
You do, especially for at least like Britons. Those folks get a game every year. Germans haven't had, but never won. So you want at least give them something that's a good product on the field. It helps, I think, having 2 teams that are reasonably put together to give you that kind of contest where it should be a good performance. And yeah, the Germans do love. I heard David Hasselhoff. It's weird. It's the French used to always love the other guy. They were famous for loving that one guy that was the actor back in the 50s and 60s, the funny man actor who was part of I forget what his name was, but Jerry Lewis. Was Jerry Lewis. Like the French loved Jerry Lewis. There's certain American actors or whatnot that in certain places are just liked and beloved in just certain countries. It's kind of odd. That's what I heard.
There you go.
Thank you though, Garth. I appreciate the $5 donation. Very, very kind of you on that. And thank you to everybody. You guys are very kind on the donations. Were you going to say something?
No.
So we need to squeeze down the routes offensively or defensively here on Brady and cut down the short routes, Brendon. We feel good enough that our defense is going to be able to stop this run without dedicating a lot of extra resources to it. Offensively speaking, when it comes to attacking this defense, what are the keys from your standpoint in how to go at this defense? Where obviously run the ball is a big part, but with how we attack specifically in the passing game, I guess.
I'm looking to use those tight ends again. Challenge Devin White in coverage. That seems to be something he struggles with. So it's worked for you all year. Why not keep it going? They're not going to be able to get the pass rush on you the way previous Tampa Bay teams have. So I'm looking at that and I'm going, yeah, let's try a lot of that. A lot of the 3 tight end stuff. Let's keep using it until somebody figures out how to stop it. It's going to happen one day. Just like one day teams figured out how to stop the Wildcat, and then you're going to wish you'd used it a little bit more when you had it. So I'm definitely looking for that. They do have pretty good corners in Tampa Bay right now. Like you said, Jamel Dean, Winfield Jr. is a really fun player, although he's more safety than corner. He's going to be playing a lot of corner. But obviously you don't want to go away from what's working right now. You're getting Lockett and Metcalf back healthy. It sounds like for the first time in a few weeks, they're going to be basically 100%. You're getting Goodwin back. I don't want to completely ignore that, but I am definitely going to continue to hammer that tight end thing until it stops working.
Yeah, I agree with you. As I've said a few times, we've had a little bit of this back and forth in this. I wonder if it'll be like the read option where there is necessarily you just need to do this defensive formation against the 3 tight ends and you'll shut it down completely. Because it does just come down at the end of the day of the bind you put defenses in of, I go 3 tight ends. Do you want to go nickel? Do you want to go base? And sort of whatever you choose to do, I can counter offensively. And the only way that you have an ability to shut down that personnel package is to either A, have base personnel where you have 3 linebackers that can run with tight ends, or safety, you can come up and run with tight ends and then you can still stop the run. Or B, in a nickel offense, you've got a slot corner who can play like a linebacker to still stop the run if they go nickel. I think that it's going to put defenses into a bind now and into the future. I think it's a unique Shane Waldron evolvement that he's applied here that other people in the league just aren't able to necessarily implement because of Seahawks' dedication towards bringing in the tight ends they have and how unique that situation is. But that's where I go with this Tampa Bay team too, Brendon. I think especially when I think about the rollouts, the Noah Fant pass last week that went for 50 yards, where you've got your tight end to one side here, and then post-snap, he's coming back across the formation. And you have a linebacker then pre-snap who's got to function in and lock in on that running game. And he's thinking first and foremost running game. So he's always going to be a naturally step slow to the bootlegs that then come back around because he's trying to play the run game first. And I think that's why that's always been open time and time again this year for Geno Smith, when he's been able to go the bootleg to have that short route. Maybe it only gets him 5 or 6 yards, right? Maybe it's not always getting him way up the football field, but it's there because the challenge of the run. That's what first sets it up.
Yeah, I feel like when teams run that play, it's almost always open. Like just in general, it seems like a really good play to get at least a few yards.
It does. It does. I think it works best too, Brendon, where if you don't have the running game, you can't always run it with that as effectively because those linebackers won't take that false step off the play action towards the run game. They'll just sit down and then they're a step closer to get to the route. And if you see like that Fant play, the linebacker's just a couple steps slow to getting back up to speed off their play action there, to where that's all Fant needs is that extra 2 yards of separation he gets from it, and he's open. But I agree with you. It does tend to be one that's more open than not. It's been just a big part of this offense for us with Geno. He's executed well. He's thrown well on the run. And if it's always there, keep working it in this game, especially off of that run game where there is that challenge there where you really stress that defense to make a choice about what they want to play and what way they want to lean. Roxanne Roll with a $10 donation. Thank you, Roxanne. Says, B, you have to set up an English-German subtitle for your stream so all of us Yanks can learn to curse in German when the ref caused explosions from you happen. Scheiße. That's right. That's a German swear word. I know that one, Roxanne. I know that one. Is there an app I could institute? There's got to be something like that out there, isn't there?
If there is, it probably doesn't work very well.
Yeah, Roxanne, it'll probably have me saying stuff that's like not exactly to what I'm trying to say. If I did, it exists, but it's in the early phase of things. I'm gonna have a few German swear words as I do my stream. So Roxanne, I'm gonna learn a couple words prior to doing the stream to call upon them when I do. I'll learn a few. I'll learn a few German phrases. Be like, "Da stinkt und feiden düten feden." When the child grows small, he's not big enough to eat. So stuff like that. That'll be just ridiculous German sayings. But thank you, Roxanne. Thank you for all the donations. Appreciate you. You can bet we're going to be running some German stuff. Like I said, I might do the play-by-play all in German accent too. Third down and 3. Seahawks aligned in a 3 tight end set. This all game. Young Goat with a $2 donation said, should all NFL teams switch to grass? Oh, this is interesting.
I mean, the league certainly makes enough money for it. So I would say, yeah. And if I'm a player in this league right now, I'm thinking about trying to establish a strike until it happens, because if you get enough players on board with it, you certainly have the power for it.
Yeah, Brennan's thoughts on this are absolutely on point, young boy. This should be done. It would protect the product. And it's, I don't want to talk about the players in less than human terms, but that is your product on the field. Are these players you play millions of dollars to, multi-million-dollar athletes, and you have them playing on a surface right now that causes them to get injured at a much higher rate, especially with the lower leg injuries, and serious injuries at that, than playing on grass. It's also a harder surface so that you get more concussions on that kind of field of surface. It's not built because it's the safest surface. It's being put out there because it's the most, it can respond the best to a massive amount of action. You can have concerts and games, and you can have high school teams playing on the field, and the field is none the worse for the wear, but it's not what's best for the players. And there have been so many injuries on that surface that it just makes no sense as to why they continue to do it. But then you get owners like Jerry Jones, just as a dirty a comment as could come out from an owner, by the way, where he came out about a week and a half ago and he said, no, wait. See, last year, if you look at the statistics, there was no difference in the way the injuries were on grass to the way they were on field. So it's the same thing. We don't need to change it. And he's totally cherry picking the stats, Brendon, because if you look at the last 20 years of grass to the field turf, the injuries are way more, but he has 1 year where there's an outlier of where they're kind of close. Cherry picks it because he doesn't want to be one of those guys to put in grass. And it's stupid, young boy. It really is. It doesn't make any sense why it's not in the NFL's best interest to do this. How much more expensive can it really be to manage grass every year for teams that make hundreds of millions of dollars in profit? What could it cost, Brendon? I mean, $500,000 per team, maybe $1 million. It don't make any sense for what you save as far as health. Oh, you're muted.
I just said I'm not a landscaper, so I don't know, but it's got to be cost effective.
I don't trim trees. I would think it would be. But young boy, yeah, I'm glad to hear the players are starting to kind of pipe up about this and say, hey, this is lame. You guys need to fix this. This needs to get corrected. It's stupid. It's silly. And hopefully the league starts to take more steps, with that. Thankfully, we've been able to hold up this year playing on that field turf surface without having really any major injuries, so far. But thank you. Appreciate you, young boy. Kevin Mullen with another $2 donation. Thank you, Kevin. Says, I have a feeling we're playing 90% nickel versus Brady.
We almost played that against Arizona. Now, Tampa doesn't have the receiver depth because they're missing Gage and may miss Julio, but you might play nickel anyway, just because they're going to throw the ball a lot.
And are you feared, to your point on that, Kevin? Do you fear, if they're in a 2 tight end set, do you fear going nickel against those tight ends? Because I don't think, Cade Otton can block okay. The other guys, whatever, but their running game in general doesn't scare you along the offensive line. So you don't feel a need to go back to base if they go 2 tight ends. And so I agree. I feel like they're going to fit more into nickel. I think Brady and company are going to be more in 11 personnel throughout the course of this game, 1 back, 1 tight end, which is then you're going to have your three receivers on the outside that they'll probably run the majority of the time. So yeah, Kevin, I would say, probably not 90%, but 80, 85%, somewhere in there, maybe 80, even 80 might be a little bit high, but somewhere near there, probably a little bit of dime in there too. Especially with the Ryan Neal packages that we can implement at times. But yeah, I would say it makes a lot of sense to go a little bit more of a nickel in this and just lean into it. Lean into that nickel, Brendon.
Right.
Boy, Bug versus Windshield with another $2 donation. Thank you for all your donations tonight, Bug. I appreciate you. Says, turns out a Seahawk can take down a goat. You ever seen those videos of the eagles you got the goats on the those mountains where they're walking up those mountains with the sheer cliff face, and the eagle came around and grabbed the goat and took him off the
No, I've not seen those. I've not seen those.
There's a couple of them. They're pretty insane where it's like the bird just comes in and grabs the goat, and the goat's just just flying along with its legs, and they're going over the crevice of some huge mountainscape as it's taking them off to wherever. It's pretty crazy. So yeah, Bug, a Seahawk can absolutely take down a goat, especially when you have a goat that's a little old like this one is. Okay, it's got gray hairs, doesn't walk on its leg as fast. It can't get quite through there as much. It's thinking about its female goat that just left him. It's wondering about that female goat, going, what am I going to do now? I don't have my female goat no more. I need to go find another female goat. And maybe that makes it less thinking about the Seahawk. That's all I'm saying. Just a little bit, could work out that way. Thank you though again for all the donations tonight, you guys. You guys are very kind with that. Really do appreciate it. Is Julio going to play? I'm hearing seeing a little bit of a question on it. Julio is going to play, says David.
He hasn't been practicing, but he never practices anymore because he's always hurt. But he'll probably play.
And I will say, when he has played, he hasn't looked all that good this year.
Yeah, and he'll play for probably like 7 plays and then hit to the locker room, and we'll never see him again.
It's what happened. I watched I was watching, it wasn't the Panther game, but the other one I was watching of theirs where they had they tried to do a fly sweep with him, Brennan. That shows you where this offense is from a desperation standpoint. They're running fly sweep with 33-year-old Julio Jones. What are you doing? Like, oh my gosh. And then he got up injured from it where he said, can't do it. One more here donation from Mumbles, $5 donation. Thank you, Mumbles. Says our defensive backs got that dog to run nickel as our base, even on rundowns with how they all play. Willing to get in there on tackles. Kobe Bryant's shown that. Yeah.
Yeah. Tariq's been a good tackler so far overall. I think he missed one against it was either the Cardinals or the Giants, but he can tackle.
Tariq's tackling well. Kobe Bryant, it comes back and forth a little bit with him, but Ryan Neal's been a very good tackler since he's been put into the starting lineup. I'm willing to run with that. I don't think there's as many guys on this Tampa Bay team that are going to break tackles in the open field like that. I mean, Fournette's a guy that could be hard to bring down, but he's not giving you a lot of production. He's averaging 3.3 yards per carry. You don't fear him. They don't have a fly sweep guy. Mike Evans is a guy going to catch it, and then you're going to pull him down. He ain't going to be breaking tackles. Goodwin just a little bit, but not a lot. So I agree, Mumbles. I think you got the personnel that can hold this up very well. So yes, I think nickel's the way to go in this game. It's going to bring them a lot of help here. And as we do kind of wrap this up, Brennan, let's give these guys a score prediction on this game, where you see this game going and how it'll settle out.
I'll go 23-17.
23-17. Do you think Seahawks run away with it, or is it like take a last-minute defensive stand?
I think it's just kind of business as usual. We play the game. It's competitive throughout. Maybe we need to get a couple first downs on that last drive to seal it. We get it. I'm not feeling like it's going to be 23-0 and then Tampa Bay storms back in garbage time or anything. So I'm sure it'll be a good game. I'm going to say 23-17.
I'll be right around where Brennan is on this, where I go 24-17. I think your offense will be able to create just enough against this Tampa Bay defense, and I do think our defense is going to provide some problems for this Tampa Bay team. I don't think they're just going to have an easy way of sailing up against this. What they try to do goes into a little bit of the strengths of our team, just a little bit, and how we played so far this year. So we'll see how it goes. A big part of this is going to be, Brendan, if we can generate that pass rush with just the front four, drop those guys into zones, squeeze the zones down for Tom, squeeze the short zones down for Tom. And if they do that, I think they're going to have a lot of success in this game. Brendan, if I've got to make the choice as a coach in this game, it's to let me make Tom beat me down the field outside the hash marks deep. Can he make those throws? Can he make a 50-yard throw deep down the field, down the sideline, and put it on a mark, put it on the spot? Not to mention, can they pass protect long enough for those long developing routes to occur? So I really try to challenge this team in that place. But I as well do see this as another win, Brendan. I can't believe we're saying that about this team, where we thought with this game when we had this marked as a big L going into this offseason. So it is amazing. It is amazing to see. Folks, do me this favor, if you could, hit that like button, and also please do hit the subscribe, where I'm on the road to 10,000. We're getting very close to getting there. Also, if you can, do me a favor, go over to Seahawks Brendon Nelson's channel. That's Seahawks Brendon Nelson, and go over there and subscribe to his channel. We'll be back on his side of the fence here next week on his channel, doing 2 different shows over there on Tuesday and Thursday. So if you're not subscribed, please do get subscribed to him over on that. I appreciate all of your guys' donations here on the channel tonight. You guys are wonderful in that respect of things, as always. So thank you to everybody out there in that respect of things. So cool to see so many people so hyped up about this team where we're at right now. It's amazing to see, especially again where we thought maybe a little bit of where we were going to be at this year, kind of coming into it.
Yeah, thank you for having me back on.
Hey, my pleasure as always, Brendan. I appreciate you, brother, for hanging in there with me as you do. Folks, we're going into Germany, Deutschland time here. Let's see what we got. Let's see if we can show those European audiences how the Seattle Seahawks do it. Let's show them our brand of football. Let's show them how we do it up here in the Pacific Northwest. Let's walk out of this with another win. Let's continue to shock the NFL world. So we got a couple games before game time, and you're probably not forgetting right now. I can see people hyped up here on the chat, but we're still going to remind you, even when you're hyped up, even when you know this team is good and is only going to get better as we go into the future, because you guys got to know. We still got to remind you. We got to make sure You're keeping it at the forefront of your mind. Don't you ever, ever forget, not even years where it's going great. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.